We're live. Good evening, council, staff, and members of the public. May I have a mover and seconder to call the meeting to order, please? I have Councillor Fisher and Councillor Moore that the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Springwater of June 17th, 2026 come to order at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Please join, if you're able, in the singing of O Canada. Councillor, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest this evening? Not seeing any, may I have a mover and seconder to call the public meeting to order, please? Deputy Cabral and Councillor Garwood. That this public meeting of council held under section 34 of the Planning Act for applications ZB 2026-005, 5 Finley Mill Road, 1153, 1159, and 1167 Bayfield Street North, and ZB 2026-007, which is 1662 George Johnson Road, be called to order at 6:33 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Welcome to this public meeting of Springwater Township Council held under section 34 of the Planning Act to give the public an opportunity to express their views in regard to the proposed applications. The first part of this meeting is to present the proposed applications. Following, the public will be given an opportunity to make oral submissions through the Zoom application or in person. Any persons wishing to make an oral submission is to have had notified the township prior to 8:30 this morning and been added to the commenters list. If a person or public body who files an appeal of a decision of the Township of Springwater in respect to the planning application does not make oral submission at the public meeting or written submissions to the Township of Springwater before the proposed amendments are passed, the Ontario Land Tribunal may dismiss all or part of the appeal. All comments and questions should be addressed through the chair. Oral submissions will be included in the meeting minutes and form part of the public record, including the name and address of the speaker, as information collected under the Municipal Freedom of Information and Privacy Act. The minutes of the meeting will be posted to the township website. Our first is ZB 2026-005, 5 Finley Mill Road, 1153, 1159, and 1167 Bayfield Street North. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and on date such notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 27th day of May, 2026 to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 40 properties in the Township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed application would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at locations visible from Finley Mill Road and Bayfield Street North. Notice was also posted on the township's website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of public meeting?
Correspondence was received from 8 residents and organizations. The Manager of Development Services in an email dated May 28th, 2026. The County of Simcoe Planning Department in an email dated June 2nd, 2025. City of Barrie Source Water Risk Management Inspector in a memorandum dated June 15th, 2026. Ministry of Transportation in an email dated June 16th, 2026. Resident from 3 Cowdrey Park Lane in an email dated June 16th, 2026. Resident from 39 Cairns Boulevard in an email dated June 16th, 2026. Resident from 3 Cowdrey Park Lane in an email dated June 16th, 2026. And resident from 47 Cairns Boulevard in an email dated June 17th, 2026. All pieces of correspondence can be found on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. I will now call upon the agent from Innovative Planning Solutions to outline the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members and members of public, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak tonight at this public meeting. My name is Bishoy Shinoda. I'm a senior planning consultant with Innovative Planning Solution, and I'm here on behalf of the landowner for 1153, 1159, 1167 Bayfield Street, and 5 Minley Road. Before I get on my presentation, I'd like to thank the public staff, the planning staff, and for their efforts on this application and for their report. Next slide, please. So before you hear, the subject lands are made of 4 parcels of land that are located on the southeast corner of Finley Mill and Bayfield Road. They are surrounded by residential uses to the east, residential and commercial to the south along Bayfield, as well as residential and commercial to the north, and then further commercial to the west along Snow Valley Road and EP lands. I have noted here nearby public amenities, in this case, the Springwater Public Library is within 150 meters, and there are 2 parks that are within 650 and 850 meters. Next slide, please. So the lands are located within the Midhurst secondary plan. They're currently zoned commercial mixed-use designation. In the Midhurst secondary plan, there is an emphasis for this intersection to have higher order retail, which is the vision that we're trying to implement here. Also, in the secondary plan, it does allow buildings up to 6 stories. However, looking into the character of the area, we do recognize that, and so we're coming with a single-story commercial plaza. The subject lands are currently zoned residential 1, and so hence the zoning bylaw amendment application here to rezone it. And we actually don't look far, we just look across the street, we'll see general commercial zone. So that's the zone that we are trying to implement on the subject lands. Next slide, please. Before you here is the concept plan that we have prepared with the landowner. So we're proposing 3 buildings, all is a single story. We are trying to implement enhanced urban design guidelines here by tucking away the massive parking away from the public eye or traveling along both Bayfield Street and Finley Mill, and locating the buildings closer to the street. Also, we're trying to implement a vision here of a community square at the intersection. We have done a consultation with the Ministry of Transportation, who have advised that Bayfield access will be a limited access. In this case, we just heard back from them confirming that they will accept the right in, right out access. And the access of Finley Mill will be a full access. We understand that sanitary service is soon to be available in the area. In the meantime, we are proposing a temporary septic bed on the north side, which will be decommissioned once the site is connected to the sanitary services when it's available. The three buildings here, one is a drive-through facility, and the adjacent building to it is likely going to be a restaurant type. Then the longer building, which is Building A, located along the eastern limits. This is going to be a multi-tenanted building. If I know it might not be very visible from the figure here, but on the southeast limit, we're saying outdoor outdoor play area. This is related because there is a potential daycare in conversation with the landowner and locating there. We have designed the site with the residents in mind. So most of the commercial places that you see, that there's typically a laneway behind the building for loading and drop off. In this case, you see that we have eliminating the loading laneway between the building and the residential on the east side. And so accordingly, this is really our main justification for the reduction, because the reduction to the residential zone would typically address the impacts from that laneway if it is present. So ultimately, the key highlights here is improved public visibility, potential. Also, we're planning for potential connection to southern land, because we heard back from staff and MTO about limiting access to Bayfield Street. So we're planning for that ahead. We're providing for sufficient parking. We're not asking for any reduction in this case. And we are planning already for potential uses on the ground, like a daycare, by showing that outdoor play area. Next slide, please. As I was mentioning earlier, these lands are zoned residential 1. We're seeking to go to a general commercial with site specifics. So the general commercial is being inspired from just across the street on the north side. The site specifics are only 2 items: veterinary clinic. We also have another tenant speaking directly to the landowner about having a veterinary clinic. It's permitted by the official plan, but not permitted use under the zoning. Would need to be site specific or addressed at a site specific level. In this case, we're requesting it. And the other item here is the minimum setback to a residential zone. So currently the requirement is a 9 meter. We're asking for it to match the rear yard setback, which is the rear yard setback requirement is 7.5. In consideration of that reduction, we have again eliminated the laneway that would typically be used for offloading for these commercial units adjacent to the residential units. And we have put in the loading at the end of the buildings along with garbage enclosures. Next slide, please. So in summary, our goal here is to implement the township's vision through the official plan while being respectful of the neighborhood character, delivering services that are not just geared towards traveling public, but geared towards the residents and the community, the Midhurst community, improve the aesthetics along Major Street, and demonstrate consistency with provincial, regional, and township policy framework. On this note, I'm happy to take any questions, and thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I will now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people that have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor Coghlan. We have 3 individuals who have registered to make an oral submission for this application. First, we have Mr. and Mrs. Rasanen of 47 Cairns Boulevard. If you are in person, can you make your way to the microphone, please?
You and I just ask that you state your name and address again, please.
My name's John Rissanen. I live at 47 Cairns Boulevard, one of the properties that's adjacent to the proposed development.
Sorry, I know these are very awkward,
my
but if
mic.
you could,
I'll
if you could
speak
lean,
up.
if you could just lean in, sorry, that's fantastic.
My name's John Rissanen. I'm a resident of Midhurst at 47 Cairns Boulevard, which is one of the properties immediately adjacent to the proposed development. Thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening, and thank you to all our other residents who've offered their support, either in writing or in conversations leading up to today. I would like to focus my comments on public safety, neighborhood compatibility, and the practical realities of operating a commercial plaza of this scale in this location. I want to begin by making one thing clear. I am not opposed to development. I understand that communities grow and evolve, and that commercial services are an important part of that growth. My concern is not whether development should occur, but whether we have sufficient information to determine that this is the right development, operating in the right way, at the right time in this location. The development includes commercial buildings, a drive-through, and substantial parking at the intersection of Bayfield and Finley Mill Road. The growth can be positive, but I believe several important questions remain unanswered. First, I'm concerned about traffic safety. We've heard a little bit about that already in the presentation. Bayfield Street is an 80-kilometer-per-hour corridor, and the proposed access points are located very close to the existing traffic lights at Finley Mill Road. Residents deserve to understand how vehicles entering and exiting the site will interact with the traffic that is stopping, turning, and accelerating at this busy intersection. I'm particularly concerned about the possibility of vehicle queues from the drive-through on-site entrance, creating conflicts near the roadway. Congestion can increase the risk of collisions on a corridor where traffic frequently moves at or above the posted speed limit of 80 kilometers per hour. I would also ask whether any traffic analysis has considered the potential for increased traffic through nearby residential streets, such as Cairns Boulevard and Cowdray Park Lane, as drivers seek alternative routes either into or around the development. Second, I'm concerned about pedestrian safety. Many residents, including children and teenagers, already walk or cycle to nearby businesses on the other side of Finley Mill Road. A new commercial destination directly opposite existing businesses will naturally generate more pedestrian activity. I would ask what measures are being considered to safely accommodate these pedestrians in an area currently designed primarily for vehicle traffic. Next, I'm concerned about how this site will function during the winter months. The proposal includes extensive parking areas and roadways, yet residents have not been given a clear understanding yet of how snow storage, snow removal, drainage, and sightline safety will be managed. In a community like ours, these are important operational considerations, not minor details. And finally, I would ask Council to consider the long-term impact on residents living immediately beside this development. Today, many homeowners look onto residential properties. Under this proposal, they may instead back onto a commercial parking lot, drive-through, servicing areas, and gathering spaces. This raises reasonable questions regarding after-hours activity, lighting, noise, deliveries, waste collection, and overall compatibility with neighboring homes. While existing vegetation provides some separation today, much of that screening is seasonal. Once leaves have fallen, the visual and acoustic buffering is significantly reduced for a large portion of the year. In summary, I'm not suggesting that development should not occur. I'm simply asking that these issues be fully understood before decisions are made that will permanently alter the neighborhood. Growth should enhance the community, improve safety, respect existing residents, and be supported by a clear understanding of its practical operational impacts. At this stage, I'm not yet convinced residents or council have enough information to reach that conclusion. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
We now have Mr. Lynch of 3 Cowdray Park Lane. If you could make your way to the front.
Didn't say I was gonna have to go after him.
Yes, and again, if you could lean forward as much as possible and your name and address, please.
Sure. My name is Greg Lynch and I live at 14 Maple Crest Road in Midhurst. I want to say good evening, Mayor, members of council, township planning staff. Again, my name is Greg Lynch and I'm appearing on behalf of my mother, Joanne Lynch, who is the owner immediately adjacent property at 3 Cowdray Park Lane. While township records indicate notice was sent to the impact mailing address on file, the property owner did not physically receive the notice and only became aware of the application shortly before this meeting. As a result, professional review of the proposals is only now being initiated. As no recommendation is currently before council, this submission is intended to place technical concerns on the public record for consideration during the review process. The shared property boundary is located along the crest of a steep treed embankment, the toe of which the slope is situated only a short distance from the existing residence. Mature vegetation and root systems presently contribute to slope stability. The requested setback reductions would place commercial infrastructure, traffic, and construction activity in close proximity to the slope. Potential impacts include erosion, destabilization, vibration-related effects, and long-term structural concerns. Accordingly, it's requested that the township require a comprehensive geotechnical slope stability study, a vibration impact assessment, an independent peer review of both studies by the township's consulting engineers prior to approval of any site layout. The requested reductions in setback distance will place commercial operations closer to an existing low-density residential property than would normally occur. Should the development proceed, enhanced mitigation measures should be required through the site plan control process, including a 2.4 to 3 meter engineered acoustic barrier along the shared property boundary, earth berming and dense evergreen landscaping for year-round screening, acoustic treatment of rooftop mechanical equipment, and operational restrictions directing loading, waste handling, and similar activities away from the residential boundary, with deliveries and waste collection limited to daytime hours. Commercial lighting adjacent to a residential property should be carefully controlled to prevent light trespass and preserve residential enjoyment. It is requested that any site plan agreement require a full cutoff, dark sky compliant lighting design with no spillover onto the adjacent residential properties, and automatic dimming or shutoff of non-essential exterior lighting following business hours. The adjoining property owner respectfully requests sufficient time to obtain professional review of the applicant's supporting materials and technical reports. Council and planning staff are requested to ensure that geotechnical stability, neighborhood compatibility, noise mitigation, lighting impacts, and overall public safety considerations are fully addressed before this application advances. Thank you for your consideration of these comments.
Thank you very much. I will turn back to our moderator.
Does the clerk want a copy?
You can leave it with our thank you. And I will go back to our moderator.
And thank you. We have Mr. Knight of 43 Cairns Boulevard.
See if I can get this right here. My name is Andrew Knight and I live at 43 Cairns Boulevard. As I understand it, the township's own strategic priority is not simply growth for growth's sake. It is to leverage growth to improve Springwater as a community. My concern is that this proposal has not yet demonstrated how it achieves that goal. Ultimately, the central concern with this application is that it appears to be premature. In my view, council is being asked to make a land use decision before some of the most critical questions regarding this proposal have been answered. The traffic impacts, stormwater impacts, and the viability of servicing the site through a private septic system have not been fully assessed or presented for public review. While the applicant's planning consultant has indicated that these matters can be addressed through subsequent site plan approval process, it is my belief that these issues are not merely one of site design. They are fundamental to determining whether the use is appropriate and viable in the first place. If the finding of these studies could materially affect the suitability of the proposed development, then they should be considered as part of the zoning bylaw amendment process before council is asked to approve use. I'm concerned about the reduction in buffer between the development and the neighboring residences. The current standard requires a 9-meter setback from residential properties, yet the applicant is seeking to reduce that protection to 7.5 meters. If this proposal is truly compatible with existing homes, why is the first request a reduction in the very buffer intended to protect them? What makes this particularly difficult to understand for me is that the conceptual plan already exceeds the required setback from Bayfield Street by a significant margin. If additional space exists at the front of the site, why not move the development further away from the existing homes rather than closer? It seems counterintuitive that residents are being asked to accept a reduced residential buffer while the development itself is positioned well back from the roadway. If greater separation from residential community has not been incorporated into design, it is my belief that it is being prioritized, a drive-through is being prioritized over the well-being of Springwater residences. In addition, I'd like to comment on the proposed community square shown on the conceptual site plan. If the intent is to create a genuine gathering space for local residents Its location raises questions. The square appears to be positioned adjacent to a busy intersection, parking areas, drive-through traffic, which does not strike me as particularly inviting or a safe place for people to gather. Community spaces are typically designed as central features that encourage interaction, connection, and a sense of place. If this square is intended to be meaningful amenity rather than a feature on a site plan, it would seem more appropriate that it be located in the center of the development, away from traffic movements and vehicle access points. As currently proposed, it feels more like a decorative element than a functional community space. I support responsible growth. I support investment in Springwater, but that growth should enhance our community, protect our natural assets, respect existing residents, and leave future generations with a better Springwater than the one we inherited. At this stage, I'm not convinced the proposal would meet that standard. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Now we return to our moderator.
Thank you. There are no additional members of the public who have registered to speak.
Thank you. And at this time, I will ask if there are any other individuals in the public here this evening that would like to make comment or have questions to pose. Come on forward. Thank you. And I just ask that you state your name and address, please.
Thank you. My name is David Heitman, and I live at 37 Cairns Boulevard. I have for 30 years. I'm just going to add to what my neighbors have said. They've said most of the things I wish to say, but my concern is that what's really on the table here tonight is a zoning bylaw amendment that'll change from residential to commercial. And I think that none of us should be distracted by that particular plan. If this amendment is made, a concept dissimilar from what we've seen could be made. And our gentleman has also said that they're looking to expand further south. So I would just ask that we take that all into consideration, that the plan moving forward may not be the concept that's been presented tonight. In fact, it could be other commercial uses. It could be a hotel, it could be high rise, it could be other things than what has been presented. And secondly, but not little, is the fact that there needs to be a proper fence no matter what is put in there. There's a body of water there that could provide hazards for anybody who may venture down, particularly during the winter, where there may be unsafe ice conditions. So fencing is a major thing. Plus, if you've ever gone through a drive-through, you know that for whatever reason, people use their window as a garbage can at drive-throughs, and all of that material would blow into the pond, which feeds into Willow Creek. And so I just ask that those things be taken into consideration. Thank you very much.
I would ask if there's any other members of the public who wish to make an oral submission. Not seeing any, I can turn to members of council if there's any comments or questions regarding this application. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, thank you for everyone for coming out tonight. I think I can speak for a lot of council when I say that often these open meetings, you can hear crickets. Nobody comes out for it. So it's great to hear the public coming forward and voicing their concerns. It's very important that they are added to the record so that staff can research them. As a matter of fact, I spent most of my day on the phone with residents today. It was great to chat with them about their concerns and also what the next steps are. As I've said to them, we're referring this back to staff. It's very important that we have our experts take a look at those concerns that you have, but even more in-depth engineering concerns. A few things that I've heard today and a few things that I've added: noise pollution, traffic problems around that area, as we all know, have been a huge concern over the last few years. With traffic coming in and out, particularly if it were to be a drive-through, it can be real problems. Drainage issues. What a lot of people don't realize when they're driving down Bayfield is there is the Midhurst Pond in there, and it's more than just a few residents. It's a real concern for them. Drainage issues. overall usage of the facility. Is this going to be you know, I know at one point a gas station was proposed. We don't want that type of thing in Midhurst. We don't need, as I've said to people, you know, Bayfield 2.0 coming through Midhurst. We need you know, we need to be very smart about it. Also, multi-story buildings. As the planner said tonight, a 6-story building. I doubt anybody in the neighborhood would be, including myself, would be happy with that. So it's very important that we refer this back to staff. This is not something that, and I know many people think that this is something that is passing tonight and that we'll be breaking ground tomorrow on something. It is certainly not like that. I want to caution everybody that this is actually something that we're going to be working with our head of planning on to see exactly what, if anything, could be done. And to the last gentleman's point, what we saw conceptually tonight is really just that. It's a conception of what could happen. Ongoing, not just tonight, but ongoing public input is very important. So, and this isn't the last time that this would come before us, I assume. So I thank you for your input, and I look forward to more in the future.
I have Councillor Alexander and then Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and thank you all for coming out tonight. To Councillor Fisher's point, it is great to see such public engagement. So I do have a couple of concerns as well from the different people that came up and spoke. One is the traffic queues from a drive-through. Councillor Garwood, you know from the Tim Hortons in Elmville, it is always out onto the Highway 27 at any type of peak hour, so that is of concern. As well as the commercial lighting piece. I know even just residential lighting, I've had issues with in residential areas with people having very bright lights into their homes, and this would be a completely different scenario with commercial lighting, so that's also a concern. But the question I have is regarding the setbacks, and why is the ask for to move from 9 to 7.5? If I can direct that to.
I would ask that if the planner could come forward again.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, to Councillor Alexander. So typically the setback here is to deal with the noise and any truck idling if you have a laneway to the back to create that additional buffer. By us eliminating the cause in the initial place, we felt that it is appropriate to match the rear yard setback. So we're not going beyond the rear yard setback requirement that is in the zoning. We're just asking for it to be matched in this case. And through the site plan process, there is going to be appropriate assessment through the noise impact study and the other technical material to look into if there is any additional impacts that need to be taken into consideration and what are the recommended mitigation measures, which at that time, staff will be reviewing and will provide their input, whether they agree or they think a little bit of enhanced solution would be appropriate.
Thank you. I'm just gonna ask if you just want to stay there because I might, otherwise we'll be up and forth. So I do have Deputy Cabral, Councillor Garwood back.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and through you, just a couple of comments. I do appreciate that the residents have come out and voiced your concerns. That's the most important piece here. This is a distinct change in zoning because everything down there was big lots, you know, residential homes, much of them, you know, very well maintained and cared for. The piece about no laneway in the back does concern me. I think you need to have as much space as you can there so that the sound doesn't carry. There's no light trespass to the residential properties behind it. And that's a pretty important piece. Tonight we have on the agenda later on a bylaw for fencing. And I think, you know, this type of a development certainly would have to have some kind of fencing around it, or I could guarantee you there's going to be people crossing residential property to get into the back of the plaza and things like that. With respect to the traffic and noise, in particular the traffic, has a traffic study actually been undertaken yet, or is that something that you perceive to happen down the road, especially when you have an entranceway? And I know that the ministry has indicated that they seem to be okay with that because it's a pre-existing one. But has a traffic study been undertaken because of that particular one? And also you have the other entrance off of Finley Mills Road, which is opposite, not quite opposite to the existing plaza, but pretty darn close.
Yes, thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So a traffic impact study will be commissioned at the site plan stage. That being said, we went through a couple of rounds with the Ministry of Transportation where we went through the revision, especially with the drive-through location. So if I may ask the clerk to put the slide with the site plan on.
We're just gonna have that pulled back up.
Like when I'm looking at it here, I'm anticipating that what the ministry is suggesting is that people coming southbound would make a right-hand turn into the lot, but there'd be some kind of channeling mechanism there. And people coming out of the plaza would be forced to make a right-hand turn. There would be no lefts permitted there.
Exactly.
And also from the drawing, it's not up yet. It looks like when people do come in, they have two ways to access the drive-through. But when they're through the drive-through, they still have two ways to exit back out. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the design of the entrance here, through Madam Mayor, the design of the entrance here, especially on Bayfield Street, hasn't been revised because the MTO comments we were just received, I believe yesterday. So it will be revised to be designed to prevent somebody exiting towards Bayfield to take a left turn. It will be just right in, right out. Even somebody who's traveling southbound cannot use a middle lane to access the plaza. Will have to go through the intersection from Finley Mill and turn right. When looking at the concept plan here, you'll see that the drive-through entrance is located central of the plaza, allowing for so it's designed with the queue requirement of the zoning bylaw, but even it gives extra buffer space through the internal laneway of the plaza, because we put it so far away from any of the entrances to prevent that queuing from happening. And this will be further verified at site plan when the traffic impact the traffic impact study is commissioned and circulated for review.
Thank you. Just follow
Follow
on. Yes, I guess in that respect, and I have to understand that the folks here are concerned about, what's being proposed is one thing. What actually is materialized down the road is a totally different animal, let's say, depending on what goes in there. If it was a restaurant that was open till 2 a.m. Down the road, you can imagine some of the types of concerns that the neighbors would have at that point in time too. But what I have to also think about, as one gentleman clearly pointed out, is that a lot of this is tied to the zoning aspect. And once that zoning is changed, then I would assume, and I will ask through the mayor to Director Russell, when the zoning is changed, is there a mechanism by which township then has the ability to qualify what businesses go in there, or are those businesses that are permitted as a right based on the actual zoning that is put in place? So depending on what the zoning is, will also indicate what types of businesses can then take shape there. Is that correct? Could you give us kind of like just a rough idea of what types of businesses could eventually come into here down the road?
Director Russell?
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, and thank you for the question. I don't have the full list of the CG zone permissions, but they're typically more things like retail, general commercial type uses. In this case, we're actually asking for a specific amendment to the permissions to add veterinarian clinics, but this wouldn't be something like a big box store or a multi-story unit or something like that. This would be typical of retail type uses, but I can certainly follow up with the full list of the CG zone.
Follow on?
Yeah, and I think for me, if it's service related or retail, convenience store, things like that, but if there's a 24-hour convenience store there like a 7-Eleven. There are people that are going to be in there on a regular basis too. And I think we have to be cognizant of the fact that those are potentials. I mean, obviously not a big box store. They don't have the space for it. But I think the other piece is, I think residents should know what is possible to go in there without the municipality being able to say no. For an example, when we decided to go with the cannabis locations, township lost the ability outside of near schools and things like that to dictate where those particular businesses would be located. And that didn't sit well with some residents. So just want to be cognizant of that fact. But thank you very much. If you could provide that, maybe so that in the next update, those potential uses would be available so that the residents would at least understand that. Thank you.
Counselor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Again, just to echo the statements of my colleagues here, thank you to everyone for coming out tonight. The main concern that I see is really two things. A, from a traffic perspective, and to Councillor Alexander's point, it's something that even with the best intentions and the best planning, we can still run into those long-term concerns, especially as communities change and evolve and are built out. Obviously, the Midhurst community for many decades now has been going through significant construction and growth. So the residents, I'm sure, are equally as frustrated as well with not only living with that, but also with these type of changes as well. But I think the comments from the community have been very reasonable. I think they've been fair. But the second piece that I have concern with as well, I think of fit and I think of density. Again, we just had a conversation not that long ago around trying to fit a lot into a little. And those are those, it seems as if the most significant concerns that the community brings forward often are around fitting a lot into a little space. And I do see that here. So I'm hopeful that the planning team and the developer can work with the community and work with township staff here on a reasonable path. But again, another issue that I see forthcoming, adding additional traffic in the area, is we also need to remember that the municipality owns a significant chunk of land just across the road. And one day, whatever that ends up looking like, obviously that's still to be determined, but there could be a potential future community hub there with enhanced traffic. We have our fire station there. We have an EMS outpost station just there. There's already access to another commercial facility. We have our library there. So there's a lot, again, in that existing infrastructure. To add another matter with also what's forthcoming in the next decade plus could compound the issues. So what might be okay today might not be in a decade.
Counselor Moore?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and thank you, everybody, for your comments. Just to go back to the comments about the laneway in behind the commercial building. Having trucks delivering and unloading their vehicles, I wouldn't be in favor of them being certainly all night, all day. But I think to the gentleman's point who brought that up with the laneway traffic, I would not support a 7.5 meter setback. I would actually probably want a larger setback. I think that's not enough space to really help mitigate some of the noise. I also liked the gentleman's comment about the rooftop equipment, something I hadn't considered, but that makes a lot of sense to me too, is trying to make sure that you're imposing on the residents as least amount as possible, especially with noise and lighting. I thought that was really important. And the piece the gentleman spoke about with the traffic, even from the on Finlay Mill Road pedestrian traffic, I think that's, I think we need to really consider what people are going to do once that building, if it is potentially built, people walking from one side of Finlay Mill over to the other side. Do we need a crosswalk? Do we need something that keeps people safe, especially children? So that is really important to me. And the drive-through. I'm not sure if you have a client in mind already or a builder in mind, but simply a 24-hour operation it wouldn't be feasible in that location either. I wouldn't want to see somebody operating all hours of the night in a residential area. So those would be my concerns.
Counselor Thompson?
Mayor Coughlin. Just a question of curiosity, and it's through the chair. Is it Mr. Oshada? Did I say that right?
Bishoy.
Oh, Moshoy, okay. You'd mentioned about your long-term intent to connect to the Midhurst wastewater plant. Could you just explain how you see that going forward? I'm sure you know it's a private plant, and have you had any discussions with the owners of the plant?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Staff through the pre-consultation process have flagged potential location or a potential capacity available to connect the commercial plaza. They have indicated that it is in progress. There was no final timeline yet. That's why we have came up with the temporary septic bed solution. Likely in this case, I'm going through a similar development application in the town of Georgina, where the pipes are prepared and capped at the end of the road. And it's just a matter, once the municipal sewers are in the right of way, is the connection, the final piece of the connection is being connected, inspected, then the valve really is being turned on, of which afterwards the septic bed is being decommissioned and cleaned up that area.
Councillor Fisher?
Just a few things that I'd like to have on record. One, I'll harken back to what a few people have said. The traffic volumes. I live in Midhurst, and the amount of volume that we're seeing presently, even over the last 10 years on Finley Mill, has increased. Whether we like it or not, it will increase even more with the new subdivision coming in until Craig Road is hopefully built. If we get traffic coming out, being filtered out from anyway, drive-through, constant traffic coming out, living there myself, I can tell you it will not work out. If you get half a dozen cars every few moments coming out, combined with the amount of flow that we have from the existing neighborhood, then combine it with an eventual subdivision, I think it's one thing to look at this project, but we sort of have to look at the other projects and how it filters in. To not look at that would be a huge mistake. It would be a huge oversight. That's one. And I also have to, agree with Councillor Moore. A 24-hour establishment, whether it be fast food or anything there, it brings in a lot of transient traffic, and I'll say that there are safety concerns. You're bringing that into a neighborhood. Now, if we were to go up onto Bayfield Street, it's busier, it's more commercial, and it's policed constantly. What I worry about, and I don't, I can't be so innocent as to think that 24 hours of transient traffic will not be a problem. Barrie has its problems where it has 24-hour establishments. So I worry about that. So that is one thing. If we take a look at the nature of different businesses there, that's one thing that could affect the community. Also, as one resident brought up to me today, and I wasn't aware of this, there are trespassing issues around the pond. There's people going in there. I was not aware, as a matter of fact. So if we were to add whether not as 24 hours doesn't matter, if we're to add that in, I think those issues could continue to be a problem. So anyway, I just wanted those things to be on the record. I also want to thank the public. I think to Councillor Garwood's comment, very reasonable. I think we all know that there's a high likelihood that this will be developed at some point, but we just need to be very cognizant of what goes there, what suits our community, and the concerns that we have. So once again, thank you.
Not seeing any further questions. Thank you to all who participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed ZB 2026-005 Finley Mill Road, 1153, 1159, and 1167 Bayfield Street North, and for showing an interest in this matter. We will move on now to our ZB, but if you wanted me to give you a couple minutes, I can wait and allow people who are wanting to leave after this one, or we'll give you a couple minutes here. It's not rude, I know. Thank you very much for being here. We really, really appreciate it. All right. We will now move on to ZB 2026-007, which is 1662 George Johnson Road. I will now call upon the clerk to confirm notice of this meeting and the dates to which notice was given.
Notice of this public meeting was mailed on the 27th day of May, 2026, to the owner of the subject lands and to the assessed owners of 48 properties in the township of Springwater within 120 meters of the area to which the proposed application would apply, and to all persons and public bodies as prescribed under the Planning Act and its regulations. Notice was posted at the assessed property to which the proposed amendment applies at a location visible from George Johnson Road. Notice was also posted on the township's website.
Has the planning department received any correspondence in response to the notice of public meeting?
Correspondence was received from a resident of 2409 Ronald Road in an email dated June 14th, 2026. This correspondence can be found attached to tonight's agenda.
Thank you. And I will now call upon the agent from MHBC Planning to outline the purpose and effect of the zoning bylaw amendment.
Good evening, members of council, township staff, members of the public in attendance. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. My name is Corey Chisholm. I'm a partner and registered professional planner with MHBC Planning in our Barrie office. I'm here before you this evening on behalf of our client, the owner and operators of the Tiny Hoppers Daycare in Barrie. And the subject of the public meeting this evening is the proposed zoning bylaw amendment required to convert the existing former Minising United Church building into a daycare facility, which they intend to make their second Tiny Hoppers daycare location. There is, while it's not subject to the public meeting, there is a parallel site plan control application underway as well. So some of the information from that is included in the public meeting this evening as it provides more context and detail for everyone. So if we can move to the next slide. So as mentioned, the site is, I'm sure everyone is familiar with it. It's the former Minising United Church, which unfortunately has ceased operations for a number of years and has been sitting vacant since. Just located on the west side of George Johnson Road in Minising, just south of Ronald Road. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, the applications is a zoning bylaw amendment and site plan control. Those are running in parallel as our client is under a tight timeline. Their timeline is to get operational by the end of October. They do secure so many daycare spots from the ministry, and that is the timeline they need to work towards to ensure that they continue to have those spaces. We have been working with township staff, making best efforts to try to expedite the approval process, and that's why we also have the site plan control application underway. We have had a number of meetings with township and county and MTO staff leading up to the submissions, just to try to work through as many preliminary comments as we could to try to help make a smoother process. As mentioned, it's a conversion of the existing vacant church building, so there is no new building proposed as proposed through the site plan. It's all interior renovations of the existing building, as well as exterior works, parking lot, outdoor play area, kind of formalizing that and bringing it up to modern day standards. If we can move to the next slide, please. So just a bit about the operators. So it's for anyone unfamiliar with it, it's Tiny Hoppers Daycare. It is a franchise daycare. It started in Ottawa, and there's now more than 40 locations across Canada. The owners and operators of this location, I mentioned they have the one location in Barrie. It's at Big Bay Point and Prince William Way in the southeast end of Barrie, and they've operated that since 2019. They're experienced in licensed child care operations, regulatory compliance, staff development, and family engagement. The proposed Minising location will provide approximately 70 childcare spaces and create 13 local employment opportunities, being the staff that would be required to serve 70 children in the daycare. That will help support families and workforce participation within Springwater Township. We know childcare is very hard to find these days, and certainly this location could serve both Minising as well as the vast surrounding rural area as well. As mentioned, it will repurpose the existing church building to provide quality childcare and local employment opportunities, which will provide a lasting benefit for Springwater families. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed site plan that's under site plan review. We have been receiving first submission comments kind of leading up to the meeting this evening. I think there might be still a few sets of comments we're waiting on, and then we will be moving forward expeditiously with a second submission where we'll respond to any comments made, both technical comments as well as any comments from council and members of the public this evening. So here it is flipped around, so south is up and north is down on this page. So George Johnson Road is on the left side, but you can see the existing church footprint in gray. There's the old part of the church at the front, built in the 1890s, and then the addition off the back. Just to go over the site layout, there will be a formalized parking area. As you can see, that'll be paved and curbed. The existing area is all kind of informal gravel parking. One thing that was we were very cognizant of from up front and had discussions with township and county staff was the kind of the parking and the drop off layout, not wanting cars to back onto George Johnson Road, understanding the building's quite tight to George Johnson Road as it sits today. So the main entrance for parents to drop off and pick up their children will be at the back of the building. So they'll come in past the building, and then it'll be a one-way loop. So there'll be a lay-by spot where they can pull over, do drop off, and then it's one way to loop around the parking area and come back out. So we're trying to avoid any cars backing up onto George Johnson or people potentially reversing out. This parking spaces at the front that are shaded in orange, those would be reserved for staff only. So again, we don't want those spots right at the front being used for parents doing drop off and pickup, as it'll become a bit chaotic. And then there is one required accessible parking spot under Ontario Building Code, and that's also located at the front. And that's because the accessible entrance is in the front. And anyone familiar with the church building, I'm sure many of you have been in it over the years, there is an accessibility lift inside, which will remain, and that ties in with that front door. So that's why the accessible parking spot is also located at the front. There is a dedicated outdoor child play area. That's the kind of white hatched area kind of nestled in with the building there. That would be securely fenced as required under ministry requirements. And it is a total of 20 parking spaces being provided. So there'd be 13 staff and then 7 additional spaces, which could be used kind of during that drop-off pickup time, in addition to the lay-by area at the back of the building. Just before I continue with the presentation, it was noted by the clerk there was one correspondence received from a neighbor. Just with the site plan up here, I thought it'd be easier to go through the kind of the questions and comments that were raised, and I can just provide some preliminary feedback at this point, and then if there's further comments and questions after my presentation, happy to answer as well. There was and I'll point out, when residents receive the public notice, I don't believe they received the detailed site plan, so some of this might just be clarified through the presentation. But there was concerns about traffic and cars potentially turning around on Ronald Road. And as I explained, we've cognizantly designed the site to have the drop-off and turnaround happening at the rear of the property, to avoid cars having to do kind of U-turns or trying to turn around out on George Johnson Road or Ronald Road. There was a concern raised about the existing septic system not being appropriate for the proposed use, and that is correct. The existing septic system there was quite old and deficient, so that's been assessed, and a new septic systems proposed through this that will need to meet Ontario Building Code requirements. Drainage and stormwater management was raised as a concern as well. And our civil engineers, Tatham Engineering, they assess the existing drainage conditions, and based on existing grades, there is a split drainage. So kind of the front half of the site naturally drains towards George Johnson Road. However, the back half of the property as it sits today does drain towards some of those neighboring properties where I believe some of those concerns have come up from. So through the proposed site plan process, and it'll need to be enshrined in the site plan agreement, it is proposed to raise the back of the site up slightly so that we're not directing any drainage onto neighboring properties. It'll be controlled on site, directed to an underground stormwater retention chamber, and then slowly released out towards George Johnson Road. So the development has to meet what's called the post-development flows have to match the pre-development flows. So we can't release water quicker than it is today towards George Johnson Road. And that's what that underground stormwater tank is proposed to do. Part related to that concern was about snow storage and snow melting in the spring and draining onto neighboring properties. So during winter months, snow storage is proposed in that southeast area shown in green. That will be kind of in an interim condition, and then snow will need to be removed off-site by a private company, and that will be enshrined in the site plan agreement. And then similar with snow melt, because we're grading the site to direct all drainage and control it, same thing will apply with snow melting in the spring. There was a comment raised about fencing. There's a lot of properties that abut this one, and there's kind of different conditions of fencing that exist there today. So there is proposed new 6-foot privacy fencing around the perimeter of the development. And again, that'll be secured through the site plan agreement. And then finally, there was a comment from a neighbor about potentially purchasing a strip of land. So on the bottom of the plan, you can see there's kind of that jog at the back. And they're suggesting potentially our client could purchase the back. It's approximately 15 feet from them, which would kind of regularize that bottom property line. And just in speaking with our client, that's something they're open to further discussions about. However, at this time, for them to meet that timeline to be open by the end of October, there's really no way we could feasibly acquire that. We'd have to go through a consent application with your committee of adjustment to do what's called a boundary adjustment. That would take at least 3 months. Then you're dealing with the land registry office to actually legally transfer the land after that. So I think it's something where our intention would be to proceed as is. And then if a deal can be arranged, that's something we could come back and do an amendment to the site plan and zoning if we had to, if that's something that works out in the future. So with that, I'll leave that there and I'll continue to the next slide. So this is the proposed zoning bylaw amendment schedule. The property today is zoned institutional, recognizing the former church use. And within that zone, a day nursery or term for a daycare is permitted. So the proposed use is permitted today. What the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for is primarily to reduce the required parking. So the township zoning bylaw minimum required parking is fairly high compared to some other municipalities today. It scales with the amount of children and staff. So we're proposing a reduced parking rate. And then through that process, the existing building has a number of deficiencies to the zoning bylaw. I mentioned it's located closer to George Johnson than would be permitted today. There's some setbacks that are deficient. So we're just recognizing those existing deficiencies through this zoning bylaw amendment process as well. Next slide, please. So this identifies the 5 site-specific requirements in the proposed zoning bylaw amendment. The top 4 are recognizing existing conditions with the building today. They would be considered legal non-complying. However, when we have a open zoning amendment or minor variance process, oftentimes we'll just include those to kind of legalize it. So that's what those top 4 are for. Has to do with the steps being located close to George Johnson. proximity of parking to some of the neighboring property lines. Again, the front yard setback of the building itself to George Johnson. And then also the interior side yard of the existing church building to the budding property. So the proposed parking rate is the new site-specific zoning that's being requested. So under the zoning bylaw today, 27 spaces would be required. And what we're proposing is to reduce that to 20. And it scales with the amount of children and staff. So that is to reflect a maximum of 70 children and a maximum of 13 staff. So if our client was to try to increase that amount of child capacity, for example, we would need to come back in the future and ask for a further parking reduction. It'd be capped under the site plan agreement at those maximums. I will point out a traffic impact and parking study was completed by Tatham Engineering. And through that, they looked at a few proxy sites in nearby communities that kind of had similar situations where almost everyone's accessing it by car to see what would be appropriate. And they also looked at other zoning bylaws to see what kind of minimums they require. So their study did support that proposed parking rate. And as far as traffic, it did support the proposed amount of children and parents, and staff as well. And what they found looking at the proxy sites is, and having young kids, I experienced this at our daycare, but drop-off happens over kind of a period of time. Daycare's open at 7, drop-off kind of happens between 7 and 9, just depending on parents' schedules. So it does spread that load out. And then similarly at pickup, some parents will start picking their kids up at 3 o'clock and it might go till 6. So it does spread out that traffic. Next slide, please. So we did submit a planning justification report and we went through all the various levels of provincial, county, and township policies. And it was our conclusion that the proposed development represents good planning. Next slide, please. So just in conclusion, as mentioned, the proposed development will repurpose the existing church building. It's a permitted use. The proposed zoning is just to deal with some of those site-specific requirements required to facilitate the scale of the proposed development. We did submit the planning report, went through all the various levels of planning policy. I will just want to say, it's not on the slide, but the proposed church, it's quite old. It's not formally heritage listed or protected. So technically someone today could come in and get a demolition permit and tear it down. So for myself personally, I went to Minising Elementary School. I attended a lot of events at the church over the years, and it's nice to see a use that's going to keep the building in the community that I'm sure lots of people are sentimental about over the years. So with that, I'd like to thank you, and I'm happy to answer any further questions from council or members of the public.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I will now call upon the moderator to provide the number of people who have registered to ask questions or make comments regarding this application.
Thank you, Mayor. We have just one member of the public who has registered, Ms. Davison of 2409 Ronald Road. If you are in person, please make your way to the microphone.
Welcome.
Madam Mayor, councillors, clerk, thank you for having me today. The gentleman that was just here just answered a few of my questions. I would like to read a letter that I did send in to the council with my concerns, and we can either say they're redundant or we can improve on what our feelings are as homeowners. So my name is Joanne Davison, and my husband here is Brian Marr. And we are the registered owners of the property located at 2409 Ronald Road in Minising. We are contacting you in relation to the zoning amendment application concerning 1662 George Johnson Road, Minising, submitted by Ontario Incorporation, and as this gentleman said, a business named Tiny Hoppers. As adjoining property owners, we wish to provide our comments and seek clarification on several aspects of the proposed amendment. This is not in my letter, but I am wondering, is the change of the zone institutional, allowing only a nursery school? Or can the rezone allow other types of businesses other than a nursery school if the corporation owning the property now decides to sell the property? If it's changed now, would that change? What would that zoning allow other than what's there right now? Two different businesses, a church, institutional, and a nursery school. So George Johnson Road is already a heavily traveled roadway, and Ronald Road currently functions as a natural turnaround point for vehicles attempting to re-enter George Johnson. Being that we live on 2409 Ronald Road, we often have our driveway used as a turnaround. The proposed zoning amendment raises significant safety concerns as increased traffic would likely lead to congestion, unsafe turning movements, and a heightened risk of accidents. The in and out entrance and exit that is proposed at this just previously, I noticed that it was very tight to get those in and out cars to be without stopping for the children to get out of the cars. So this issue is especially troubling given the presence of children attending the proposed nursery school who would be placed at increased risk due to the additional traffic flow and unprecedented vehicle movements. A practical solution would be for the corporation to to purchase the house located on the corner as a current owner has indicated a willingness to sell. Acquiring this property would allow the corporation to create a dedicated safe turnaround area, reducing traffic pressure on Ronald Road and George Johnson, and improving overall safety for residents and children. Another proposal, which was brought up at this gentleman that was just here, would be for the corporation to purchase approximately 15 feet from 2409 Ronald Road to provide room for a turnaround in the already parking lot at 1662 George Johnson Road, which would make getting in and out of the proposed nursery school safer. We would like to stay living at 2409 Ronald Road for our retirement. Our property is high maintenance, and we don't mind selling off that 15 feet if you're asking why. Our property is pretty big. It would certainly create less work for us and also make the property line more conforming to a grid survey, with a property being straight instead of the little curve as you saw in the property line outlined in the whatever that is. In addition, the septic system on the property would require significant upgrading. When the parking area was originally acquired from 2409 Ronald Road, the owner at the time, Mr. Ma, now deceased, and his son Paul Ma, who now resides elsewhere in Springwater Township, informed us that the Stewarts, the owner of the church property, now represented by the corporation, installed a French drain system to support the drainage needs of the existing system, the existing septic and water system. This history indicates that the current system was already insufficient for the previous use and required supplementary drainage measures. Any intensification of use, particularly one involving a nursery school, would place additional strain on the system and necessitate a full septic upgrade, ensure environmental safeties and appliances. I do understand that this was just addressed, but I just want to make sure that you understand that if it does affect our property, as the photos showed that we had presented to the council before this meeting. All eaves must be connected to the township's storm drainage system to prevent runoff from discharging into neighboring properties. As an adjoining neighbor, we have experienced backyard flooding as documented in the photos. And on one occasion, when 1662 George Johnson Road experienced basement flooding, occupants ran a hose out the window to expel water, which directly contributed to the flooding in our backyard of 24 Ronald Road. This history demonstrates that the current surface and subsurface drainage arrangements are inadequate, and that any intensification of use will increase flood risk to neighboring properties. We therefore request that the township require mandatory eaves trough connection to the municipal drainage system and a comprehensive stormwater management plan, and that these measures be implemented prior to any change or use of occupancy. There's also the snow removal practices of 1662 George Johnson Road, which must be fully contained on the subject's property and not pushed against the fences or boundaries of neighboring lots. In past winters, snow from George Johnson Road, 1662, has been piled along shared property lines, and the subsequent melting has caused water damage to adjoining township-owned lands and to neighboring properties, including ours on 2409 Ronald Road. This pattern demonstrates that the current snow storage approach is inadequate and creates avoidable runoff and flooding risk. Any approval of the proposed zoning amendment should therefore require the corporation to implement a dedication on site, which I did see the green areas made on there, but they're not adequate because I live right there. I know those little areas they're saying, and that's not adequate enough area to get rid of the snow. Our concern is ensuring that snow is not pushed toward the fences or neighboring properties, and that meltwater is properly managed through the township's drainage system. The next subject would be the fences, and the current fencing arrangement presents a significant safety concern, particularly given that young children, such as when ours were 2 and 3, are naturally inclined to climb. Our fence at 2409 Ronald Road is 6 foot high. However, this does not eliminate the risk, nor does it relieve the corporation of its responsibilities to install its own property boundary fencing on the property lines. Without a dedicated fence on the corporation side, there remains a risk that children could climb onto or over our fence, creating a serious safety hazard. In addition, if a vehicle from the corporation's property were to damage our fence, this would create a avoidable replacement and insurance costs for us as adjoining owners. Something that was brought up in the last presentation brought to my own mind, which was lighting in the parking area in the back parking lot. For pickup of the children after winter months, our concern there would be the appropriate lighting would be like automatic timers. I'm not quite educated enough to know what would be good to put into a parking area that children would be going in and out of with cars, but I do know that our yard is not buffered other than by a 6-foot fence. So if there was a lighting system that was right in the parking lot, it would definitely affect our home, our evening sitting outs, our fires, our entertainment, our enjoyment of our privacy in the yard, having that shining light. I noticed in the presentation there was a garbage container. I believe it was garbage and it was a pickup, and it was in the corner of the property, in the back corner on the right. I'm not sure if that was garbage, but if it was, it's not appropriate that it would be next to our backyard, and the beeping and the noise of trucks picking up the garbage would be a concern for us. In conclusion, we respectfully request that the council and the corporations provide us with written feedback addressing the concerns we have outlined, so that the township and the council and the mayor, you recognize that I'm not complaining. I am really giving you some concerns as a property right next to this nursery school. I actually would love that building to become a nursery school. I think it would be excellent for the community. I think it would be fun to listen to children play. But I really feel our concerns being right next door to the parking lot is really a priority for us to make sure that there is enough parking and it's safety for the children. So I have proposed to the corporation that we would sell, and I wrote it here, that 15 feet. Now with that 15 feet, that turnaround in the parking is definitely something that's feasible. I have been in that parking lot and tested the turnaround. When you turn around in coming in the in and out road going into the back of the parking lot, you would turn around and you would come back out. Well, that area is not big enough to have parking at our fence line or that property line of 2409 to make it wide enough and to make it that the other property line on that's facing the back of the proposed nursery school would be safe for a roundabout, a full roundabout. Parking, yes, for maybe 10, 15 cars somewhere, but certainly not to give a full circle of turning around and letting those children out. I've tried it. I physically have been in, I've walked around trying to make sure that I'm pretending I'm taking the child into the daycare, and parking does not work. So if they bought the 15 feet or a year council could propose, yes, the 15 feet would help them out. I would definitely like the nursery school to be there. I can't say anything else other than thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey.
Thank you very much. And I will return to our moderator for any additional registrations.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There are no additional members who have registered to speak.
Thank you. I will turn to members of the public who wish to have made comment. I'm not seeing any additional. I will turn to members of council. Councillor Fisher.
Keep it brief. I thank the constituent for coming forward with those concerns. Always important to have them on the record. That being said, and I think I agree with the constituent as well. A lot of these old buildings, they're at risk of without usage, falling apart or being, eventually just ripped down and being derelict. And it's a piece of our history, actually. When I drive around, seeing old barns and they're very nostalgic, Victorian homes, things like this. And so I actually really like the idea of seeing usage like that, and I think you agree. And it preserves the building as well, so it's really nice. And I too have been at that church. It's very picturesque, and I think it's actually a very good usage for it as well. So anyway, I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great proposal. That being said, I think firsthand knowledge of the concerns are also excellent as well. So.
Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and again, thank you for being here tonight. Again, I think my first of all, echoing some of the comments that we've already heard, it's nice to see a second life on a facility like this. We have a church that's sat vacant for many years in Elmvale that I wish something like this would have an opportunity to bring it back to fruition, which would be nice. As a dad of 3 kids under 5, I spend a lot of time at daycare, pick up and drop off. So I know that experience well. It's most of my days sometimes. But my only concern on this is primarily the number of parking spaces. So respectfully, that was the first thing that I noted, and I know that was noted by the resident that came forward. I think it was the required parking spaces is 27. There's 20 being proposed, but of the 20 proposed, 13 are for staff. So that does only leave 7 for the public. 7 for the public with 70 kids. Again, while yes, I agree with Mr. Chisholm in regards to the pickup and drop-off times are spread out. The majority of people do pick up their kid at 5 o'clock, and I could see it being quite busy in that sense. So again, just those are some high-level concerns. Overall, I love the idea. I love that it's a great new business in Springwater, but from the parking piece, that is my only concern.
Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And again, general echoing, great use of an older building. Daycare is always needed throughout Springwater. Some very valid concerns brought up by the resident. The biggest one for me is the same as Councillor Garwood, is the parking piece. I do not think we have sufficient parking there. And while I understand kind of the drive around loop with the drop off point, I don't think anybody's dropping off their 4-year-old or younger. They are getting out of they're parking their car, getting out of their car and walking them in. So I do have pretty big concerns with the number of parking spots and just even people trying to back in and out into that loop and the issues that could occur with, toddlers running around, which, you don't want your toddler to run, but it does happen. So that would be my concerns. But in general, I think it is a great proposal for that piece of land.
Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Concur with everything that was said, and thank you very much for making your presentation. You brought up some very good, valid points. It's nice to see that someone's okay with the development. They just have concerns about how it's going to go forward. I did want to ask you, however, with respect to your photographs that you shared with us, in particular the flooding issues, have those photographs been shared with the corporation or Mr. Chisholm?
No, sir.
Right. The only thing I'm
Name or anything about the corporation until actually today.
Yeah.
Okay. I think what we can ask, and I think what we could ask is that if you can leave your contact information with staff and provide that images to staff, they can share it.
I am absolutely not computer savvy, so if you could share those photos as you wish to make this work,
Our CAO.
welcome to.
Our CAO has just said that she will send it to staff on behalf. Thank you.
Can I finish speaking, please, Mayor Caldwell?
Deputy Cabral?
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I found those particular photographs quite telling. And that's why I'm asking that question, is whether or not they are aware of that is what's been going on in the past, so that they might be able to take that into consideration when they're doing their site plan and things like that. So I just wanted to see whether or not you're going to be able to share them. And if not, I guess we've been told that we can. So thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you for understanding it is a big concern having that kind of water come on.
Councillor Moore and then Councillor Thompson.
No, thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just a quick question about the business. So to Mr. Chisholm, through you, Mayor Coughlin, to Mr. Chisholm. I'm not familiar with this particular daycare provider, but do you know what the hours of operation are? Some now, what I'm finding is, you know, I have little ones too that go to grandkids that go to daycare, not my own. But they are needing more shift work style daycares now. And curious to know if this is going to be a 24-hour operation or days of the week, please. Okay.
Thank you.
I never heard of that before.
So my client just confirmed their operation in Barrie is 7 to 5:30. And I think at this point, that would be what they'd be looking for here as well.
Monday to Friday.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have Councillor Thompson and then Councillor Fisher.
Yeah, so with you there, Mr. Chisholm, through the chair to Mr. Chisholm, two things. From what I heard in your presentation, you've recognized the existing water problem that you guys have kind of inherited, and you have a plan to solve it, not to add to it. So I would just, if you want to speak to that, please.
Yes, that's correct. So we received the neighbor's letter just before the meeting, which is why I spoke to some of those points in my presentation. We did not receive the photos, so happy to receive those and pass them along, especially to our civil engineers who are looking into the grading and drainage. But to Councillor Thompson's point, yes. So the first step in any stormwater management strategy is getting a topographic survey done of the property to see today, when it rains, when snow melts, where is that drainage going? And the neighbor, as I'm sure is aware from over the years, the back approximate half of the property does drain to the neighboring properties. And even if you go out there on site, it is fairly low back there. So through that, through the proposed development, that back portion would be raised up a bit so that all stormwater is directed internal to the site, captured in a catch basin, underground storage tank, and then it'd be controlled release out towards George Johnson Street. And that all gets reviewed by the township engineering as well through the site plan process.
Follow on?
And again, these are experienced daycare providers. There's been some comments about the drop off. Could you explain how that works and what kind of percentage of parents come in and drop their kids? What kind of percentage of parents come in, stop and park and take their kids out of the car?
Yeah. Yes, I can speak to that. And I should have been more clear when I explained the drop off point in my presentation. When I say drop off, I don't mean the kids just jump out of the car. It's more the parents. It's like a lay-by. They can pull over out of the drive aisle. The parents get out, get their kid, bring them in, kind of in and out, usually within a couple minutes. That's what I do in the morning, as opposed to parking in one of the dedicated parking spots. So the lay-by kind of effectively functions as a few extra parking spots. They're not intended to be long-term, but for that kind of quick parent-child drop-off pickup. As far as the percentage, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I'd have to take that back to my client. Yeah.
Councillor Fisher?
Just be quick, a few things, and I think you touched upon this, the economic benefits. I think the spin-off economic benefits of childcare and keeping parents working and in the labor force, I think it's excellent. The other thing I would say is, the hours that you mentioned, 7 to 5:30, in a residential area, this is a relatively quiet business, you know, so I think it's one thing to recognize that we just heard from other residents who are concerned about, traffic flow and 24-hour things in their neighborhood. I think it's important to recognize that this is actually a very calm and quiet business to operate. So, I think it blends very well with a neighborhood setting. So anyway, I'm in support of it.
I say I used to work in daycares and that was not the experience. Counselor Garwood.
I was going to say, Councillor Fisher, your kids must be a lot better than mine. Yeah. Just quickly, through the mayor to Mr. Chisholm, can you just speak to that lay-by area specifically? You said a couple spaces. Are we talking 2? Are we talking 4? Are we talking 6? I know it's small on the map there, so it looks probably 2 cars in length, would you say?
Mr. Chisholm?
Yeah, we don't have it dimension, just eyeballing it in relation to the parking spots. I'm going to say approximately 2 cars. 3 Mini Coopers, 2 F-150s, but.
Follow on.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, through you to Mr. Chisholm. Thank you for that. Again, and not to belabor the point by any means, I think what you're hearing around the table is we love this idea, right? It's absolutely excellent, from the economic benefits to the revitalization of the church to the just need for care, right? Everyone around this table has had children, so we all know what it is like to go through that process and to try to find adequate care, especially close to home in our communities. So it is so absolutely necessary. I just think that that 7 parking spaces piece, again, just knowing that pickup and drop off experience. I know you had mentioned, as having children yourself, right? Some mornings it can be 2 minutes, some mornings it can be 20. So again, just trying to be realistic, and I would hate to see, George Johnson Road becoming let's pull off to the side of the road and hop the kids out and run in. And then that becomes not only a safety concern from the kids' perspective, but also from the neighboring residential properties as well. So love this idea. Probably one of the best things we've seen in a long time, in my opinion. Just trying to work out that parking.
I'm not seeing anything further. At this time, I would like to thank all who participated in the public meeting with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw 2026-007-1662 George Johnson Road, and for showing interest in the matter. May I have a mover and seconder to adjourn the public meeting, please? I have Deputy Cabral and Councillor Thompson that this public meeting of council held under Section 34 of the Planning Act for ZB 2026-005 5 Finley Road, 115311591167 Bayfield Street North, and ZB 2026-007-1662 George Johnson Road does now adjourn at 8:08. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. May I have a mover and seconder for the direction following, please? Councillor Fisher. Councillor Garwood. The council, having held a public meeting in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended for the zoning bylaw amendment SU 2026-005 by Innovative Planning Solutions on behalf of Bayfield Street Limited, having noted correspondence and input direct staff that the application be referred back to staff. Anything further on that one? All those in favor? And that has carried. And for our second public meeting, mover and seconder, please. Councillor Moore, Councillor Alexander, that council, having held a public meeting in accordance with Section 3(4) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13 as amended for zoning bylaw amendment ZB 2026-007 by MHBC Planning on behalf of Tiny Hoppers, having noted correspondence and input, direct that the application be sent back to staff, referred to staff. Further comments or questions? All those in favor? And that has carried. At this time, I will call upon the Severn Sound Environmental Association for a presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'm going to ask if you can, I know.
Please.
Thank you.
Yeah. So good evening, Madam Chair, Deputy Mayor, members of council, staff and guests. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the update on surface water monitoring activities in the township of Springwater and to discuss future monitoring opportunities. Next slide, please. So first, I would like to briefly review our current monitoring programs. So we have the Inland Lake Monitoring Program currently covering Orr Lake, and this work is funded annually by the township. And you can see our monitoring location on the map within Orr Lake. Also, we monitor one site at the Way River through the Provincial Water Quality Monitoring Network. Under this partnership program, SCCA complete the field sampling while the ministry provides lab support. Also, I would like to mention that before 2025, Orr Lake was monitored on a 5-year rotation with biweekly sampling during monitoring year. And in 2025, SCCA shifted to annual monitoring. And the updated program included biweekly nearshore observation and 2 deep water chemistry sampling events. And our main focus was on early detection and reporting of algae blooms and other changing lake conditions. And also in 2025, SCCA began using new tools to collect and share water quality information more quickly. And one example is Aquatrol 700, which is cutting-edge multi-parameter zond, which made our life much easier. And I would like to say thank you to the township for the financial support. This tool allows us to process and report monitoring results within about 48 hours after field visit. And as a result, we started producing rapid reports. And you can see an example of our rapid report. And again, our focus was on identifying and reporting possible algae blooms. Last year, rapid reports for Orr Lake were issued biweekly, and we will continue this year. To make information easier to access, QR code signs were installed at monitoring location with support from the township, and residents and visitors could scan the code and view the latest monitoring results directly from the SCCA website. We are continuing this rapid reporting program in 2026 with nearshore observation every 3 to 4 weeks and 2 deep water sampling events. This updated schedule is based on 2025 results, which show that water quality condition did not change much over a 2-week period. And also we expect that algae bloom monitoring will be supported through the Smart Water Watch program that I will provide more information later. And this will help SCCA focus staff time on urgent field visits and bloom investigations and when needed. Next slide, please. Now I would like to share some actual monitoring results, and I will start with Orr Lake. Unfortunately, an algae bloom began developing in July 2025 and persisted into September, and water clarity was also lower than long-term average. On the positive side, dissolved oxygen level were higher than average, which is beneficial for aquatic life. Electrical conductivity, which is indicator of dissolved minerals and salts in the water, was also higher than average, and this is concerning. Conductivity also increased. So please, next slide, please. So if we look at long-term trends, we can clearly see that there is a rise in conductivity and also in chlorides level. And we can see this trend across the area, for example, within Lake Simcoe watershed as well. And right now it's a growing concern. Despite these trends, nutrient level have been decreasing and overall water quality index remain good. And just for information, water quality index is a summary measure of lake health based on several indicators, including phosphorus, dissolved oxygen, and water clarity. Next slide, please. And this slide has information on stream conditions, and unfortunately, Way River is not doing as well as Ore Lake. The Way River continues to have high phosphorus and nitrogen levels. Good news is that both have been slowly decreasing over time. Water quality index is fair, but there are signs of improvement. Next slide, please. And now I want to introduce our new citizen science program called Smart Water Watch, which is partially funded through the Great Lakes Freshwater Ecosystem Initiative by the Canada Water Agency. And we also extended this framework into Ore Lake as a part of existing inland lake monitoring program. Next slide, please. So this program aims to track changes in lake conditions by combining SSA long-term monitoring programs, such as Inland Lake Monitoring Program, with new technologies such as mobile apps, satellite data, and observations collected by residents and citizen scientists. Basically, we will use SSA monitoring data and observation from citizen scientists to validate satellite data. We are connecting data on the ground with data from the sky, and I believe it's quite exciting. And we hope that this will help us better understand the limitations of satellite observation, identify the best ways to use them, and explore what additional information they can provide. Through this pilot program, residents and visitors can submit observations and photos of lake condition using an online form. And while there is a strong focus on algae blooms, people can also report other unusual conditions they notice. Also, I want to emphasize that this program doesn't replace reporting blooms to the ministry. This is our SSA internal tool that help us better understand where blooms occur and how they move and when they develop. So we will review all submissions and follow up with residents when needed, and we will provide any additional monitoring and sampling if needed. Next slide, please. So here I want to emphasize that anyone can participate and people can choose how involved they would like to be. This program is still under development with full implementation planned for 2027. Lake condition reporting tool is already active and available for public use. So if people from Ore Lake would like to submit observation, then can use a QR code. Also, right now we have a new science with QR code that we are going to install near our monitoring locations with help from township, and people can scan those QR codes and submit observation directly to us. What else? And my next slide, please. It's about our introductory webinar that SSA will be hosting on June 30th from 10:30 to noon. And this webinar will feature 4 guest speakers. And we will have a representative from the Canada Water Agency, and they will talk about funding available for community-based science. Also, we will have a representative from NASA who will discuss a so-called STREAM platform. This platform provides satellite-based information on chlorophyll and water clarity around the world. And NASA became interested in SSA monitoring data, which we share with them. And as a result, STREAM platform coverage will be extended to include Severn Sound region and northern part of the township of Springwater. Also, we will have a professor from Queen's University who will discuss the use of satellite data for lake monitoring and watershed monitoring. And finally, we will have a professor from University of Maine whose team developed the HydroColor mobile app. And basically, people can use that mobile app to collect data on water clarity and water color. And yeah, I believe that it should be really interesting for young generation. So you can register using this QR code. Also, we have information on SSA website. And if needed, I can send directly email with invitation. So you're very welcome to join. And my final slide. It's about future of this project. So the project is funded through March 31st, 2029. And the goal is to build a long-term data set to develop ways to use satellite data to support water monitoring. The tools and method developed through this project will become part of SSA's regular water monitoring program after the funding period ends. The lake condition reporting tool is also planned to remain available as a long-term resource for both monitoring and public engagement. And that's all I have for today. Thank you again for opportunity to present, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Before I turn to council for any comments or questions, I just need this moved and seconded. Councillor Alexander and Councillor Garwood, that the delegation from the Seven Sound Environmental Association be received, and I can open it up for comments or questions. Councillor Alexander?
Thank you. Just a couple comments. Thank you, Elena, for coming out. I think water quality, specifically algae blooms on our lake, has been an ongoing concern, at least for this term. Thank you for all the work that you do to do the water quality monitoring. And I love the embracing of new technology, the QR codes, so residents or non-residents who are using the lake can have quick access, as well as the lake conditions update, kind of the one pager. That's a bit dumbed down for people like me in terms of the scientific aspect of it, but just whether the water is safe or not. But the Smart Water Watch program is so incredibly exciting. I know residents at Orr Lake are very excited as well as the Orr Lake Ratepayers Association. This could really move things ahead so much while using citizens. So without, jumping up the costs of monitoring, there's just so many possibilities here. So very excited about that. And thank you for the work, and thank you for the work that was done to get the funding to do this. So thank you.
Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and thank you for being here, Lena. Really appreciate it. Nice to see you again. And just to echo Councillor Alexander's statements, the work that the SSEA continues to prove in our community is significant, especially with Orr Lake being so significant to our community. I also think about the work in which the Township of Springwater continues to partner with the SSEA. Obviously, recently, Council passed direction to work forward to boost our communication efforts, and that'll come with not only digital communication, but hopefully actual signage as well. As we know, and we've spoken about before at this table, the algae bloom pieces continue to be a concern, not only for residents that are living on the Orr Lake community, but of course, those that are visiting the community through tourism throughout the summer, which we know is a big part of the area's economy as well. So thank you for being here, and thank you for this information. Again, I know groups like the Orr Lake Ratepayers Association is very grateful for the collaboration. I know they've really taken on that citizen science effort, and I know they're very eager and excited to partner with you, and I know you continue to collaborate with them and with Councillor Alexander and the rest of the board. So again, I'm really excited to see this moving forward.
That's great. Thank you very much. Not seeing any further comments or questions. This time, council, the delegation that has been moved and seconded, just that the delegation from the Seven Sound Environmental Association be received. All those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you so much. At this time, we'll move on to item 7, which is question period, and members of the public are invited to ask questions of council or make comments regarding an item on the agenda. Questions not on the agenda will be at the discretion of the chair. In order to accommodate the registration process for oral presentations, submissions will be accepted until 12 p.m. on the day of the meeting. In accordance with the procedural bylaw, the first 5 submissions will be accepted in order that they are received on a first come, first served basis for a total of 15 minutes to be dedicated to question period. I will now turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Question period submissions will not be accepted where they relate in any way to the municipal election process or campaign activity. This includes, but is not limited to, statements or questions indicating an intention to run for office, announcing or promoting a candidacy, expressing support for or opposition to a candidate, referencing another person's candidacy, or making comments that could reasonably be interpreted as election-related advocacy. However, general administrative questions about the conduct of the election may still be accepted, provided they do not promote or oppose any candidate or campaign. Examples of acceptable questions include those respecting voting methods, voting locations, voter eligibility, and other general election administrative matters. To preserve the neutrality and procedural integrity of council meetings, any submission containing campaign-related municipal election content will be deemed ineligible for question period and will not be read or considered.
Thank you. At this time, if there's any comments or questions from member of the public.
Good evening, Council. Hale Mahan, 33 Hillview Crescent, Midhurst. My question tonight is about item 10.10 on the agenda, the Development Charges Reduction Program. This question might not be as top of mind compared to some of the bigger issues that we've had at this table recently, but this kind of program shifts the way that we do cost recovery for critical infrastructure. And given all the local growth that we're seeing and continuing to see, it is very important. The program will have the province paying for 90% of infrastructure projects. If the township cuts development charges, and the proposal on the agenda in principle is to do that by 30%. Springwater's proposed project, Craig Road, is very worthy, given that it has been on the books for so long and is the true kind of housing enabling infrastructure that the county's report on this topic mentions. But that report, which staff concur with, also outlines some financial risks that seem to apply to our project. We're likely to have a net loss because Craig Road is estimated to take up about 26% of DCs in the background study, whereas the required reduction would be 30%. We would also pay 10% of the project per the program guidelines and pay design costs separately. There is some real risk of losing out on revenue, which could be spent on services further down the road. It appears to me, however, that there would be two benefits to going forward with the program that may justify the risk. One, preventing the need for debt financing and related interest cost, and two, possibly beginning construction earlier with cash in hand from the province. I'm wondering if staff or council could elaborate on these questions. On the debt issue, does the township anticipate that the servicing cost and impact on creditability will offset the upfront revenue loss? And on the timeline issue, I want to make sure that we're not foregoing development charge revenue that could improve the project when it's finally finished. If we went with straight DC funding a little bit later, would it let us have some extra money to add things to the project like traffic calming?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to defer to the CAO if this is something that we want to address now, or CAO.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Staff could provide some responses to some of the questions. I would direct it to Director Bedard. Director Bedard?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Some of the questions that were raised by Mr. Mahan are questions that staff currently have, and we would not know the answers to until the province educated our application and provided an answer on whether we were successful or not. If we were successful, the amount of funding received from the province, we would do a financial analysis of that to determine the net benefit or net loss to the township. Right now, we're not sure if we'd be successful, and if we were successful, we're not sure what we would receive. So it's difficult to provide a definite answer at this time. You know, that said, if we were successful, we'd come back to council, and council would have the opportunity to receive that financial analysis from staff to make a decision on whether it is a net benefit or a net loss to the township at that time. Right now, it's too hard to say with the amount of unknowns.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
Sure.
Thank you. So just to confirm, so is that to say that if the application goes in and the township is successful with the application, council would still have the opportunity to review? Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I can turn to other members for any comments or questions. And not seeing any. I don't believe we verified if there was any questions submitted. If we could just do that for online. CAO?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There were no submissions received for this evening's meeting.
With that, before we do move on to number 8, I'll turn to council if we wanted to take a break before we move on to the minutes. Perfect. Thank you. We'll go 10 minutes, 15. 10 sounds great. Right, and we will reconvene. We are now at item 8, which is our minutes. May I have a mover and seconder for the minutes, please? I have Deputy Cabral and Councillor Garwood that the minutes of council listed herein be approved as presented. And 1 is our minutes of the regular meeting of council of June 3rd, 2026. 2 is the minutes of the special meeting of council of June 3rd, 2026. And 3 is the minutes of the special meeting of council closed session of June 3rd, 2026. Are there any questions on these minutes? Not seeing any. All those in favor? And that has carried. We are now moving on to our board, committee, and organization minutes. A mover and seconder, please. Councillor Fisher and Councillor Moore, that the minutes of the boards, committees, and organization listed herein be received for information. 1 is the minutes of the Agricultural Advisory Committee meeting of April 7th, 2026, and 2 is the minutes of the Springwater Sports Heritage Board meeting of May 7th, 2026. Are there any questions on these minutes? Not seeing any. All those in favor? And that has carried. We now move on to item 9, which is our correspondence. May I have a mover and seconder for this, please? Councillor Moore and Councillor Garwood. And that the correspondence and information items regarding Bill 100, the Better Regional Governance Act 2026 be received as information. And it's the resolution of the authority of Simcoe County Council to appoint its warden. This is the town of New Tech of April 29th, 2026. Resolution Bill 100, the Better Regional Governance Act of 2026, Town of Collingwood of May 8th, 2026. Resolution Bill 100, Better Regional Governance Act 2026, Municipality of Brook of May 25th, 2026, and resolution of the Better Regional Governance Act 2026 of the County of Prince Edward of May 29th, 2026, and resolution Bill 100, Better Regional Governance Act 2026, and this is the Township of Norwich. Are there any comments or questions on these? Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just to kind of explain a bit, County of Simcoe did also pass a similar resolution. These were on the council information package, and it's has other municipalities from within Simcoe County that also passed similar resolutions with respect to Bill 100. And it was also interesting to note that there were 2 from outside Simcoe County that received our resolution with respect to Bill 100 and not being comfortable with the regional chairs or the wardens being appointed, or in particular, some of them also had concerns with the strong chair powers. But it was interesting that there were 2 there that were outside of Simcoe County that responded to the resolution that Springwater put forth and endorsed it and submitted their own. So I just wanted them to be on the record here, because I suspect there may even be a few more. Bill 100's passed, but it's still worthwhile that these letters, I think, go into the provincial government so that they are aware that there are municipalities that have serious concerns, and there's always opportunity for them to change. Thank you.
Thank you. And as a bit of an update, governance, so Simcoe County Governance Committee met yesterday with these issues that are being pushed upon the county. We were specifically looking at the appointed warden process should, it says may, that the province may, so to have an internal process, and if the county is able to appoint, the weighted vote system, the position of deputy warden, now with the full-time warden. So those recommendations will be going to county council at the next meeting. Anything further on this? All those in favor? And that has carried. Mover and seconder for what is it, 9.2, please. Councillor Moore and Councillor Garwood, that correspondence and information items listed regarding Bill 97, the Plan to Protect Ontario Act 2026, be received as information. And this is a resolution restraining compliance with the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And this is the County of Prince Edward. A resolution opposing the proposed changes to the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And this is from Marcher. And the resolution changes to the Ontario of Freedom of Information Protection and Privacy Act, Municipality of Chatham-Kent of June 6, 2026, and resolution opposing the changes of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, and this is the Township of Southgate from June 4th, 2026. And resolution opposing changes to Ontario's Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. And this is Grey Highlands of June 3rd, 2026. Are there any questions or comments on this correspondence? Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And this has been very topical in the news. Everybody should be quite familiar with it. The one piece to this is they're trying to associate it with the federal government's position. The FOI, or Freedom of Information Act, has been in place for a long time. It's what newspapers often use in order to seek out and find items that the public should be aware of, and maybe the where and how that those things may have happened. It brought to light some of the issues with the Greenbelt scandal, also some of the issues to do with the not Toronto Airport, but the Ontario Place changes. So I thought it was important to have this on our agenda, to recognize that there are a number of municipalities within the province of Ontario that are quite vocal about it being not changed, and certainly vocal about it being retroactive to accommodate the premier and ministers in the provincial government. I was going to add a resolution to this when it came forward, but I've spoken with the clerk and probably will do that at the next council meeting. So that's why it's on here. And if anybody else wants to speak to it, that's wonderful.
Not seeing any. Oh, CEO Ainsworth.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just to note that staff will be providing an information report at the next meeting, just to outline the changes in the legislation as well.
Not seeing anything in further. All those in favor? And that has carried. Moving on to item 10, our action reports. Mover and seconder, please. Councillors Alexander and Garwood, that action reports listed 10.2 through 10.10 be received, and the recommendations contained therein be approved as presented. 10.2 is the draft fence and pool enclosure bylaw. 10.3 is the special events update bylaw. 10.4 is the Grenfell Community Park Outdoor Rink Board replacement. 10.5 is the request for Swoop Fiber public Wi-Fi. 10.6 is the Midhurst Heights Doran Water Treatment Plant and Sewage Pumping Station Security Reduction. 10.7 is the Carson Neighborhood Phase 1B Security Reduction Request. 10.8 is award of 2026 32 PW Professional Engineering Consulting Services for the Road Needs Study. 10.9 is the Midhurst Heights Phases 1CD Subdivision Security Reduction, and 10.10 is the Development Charges Reduction Program. At this time, Council, I would ask if there's any to be pulled for redirection. Councillor Fisher? Councillor Moore?
10.4, please.
Any others to be pulled for redirection? Not seeing any. Deputy Cabral?
Yes, it would be the fence enclosure bylaw 10.2.
10.2. So at this time, Council, we will be having comments on 10.3, 10.5, 10.6, 10.7, 10.8, and 10.9. Are there any comments on any of these? Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'd like to make a just quick comment on 10.3 and 10.
Please.
Just regarding 10.3, which is the special events bylaw update, I just wanted to say thank you to Manager Kellington, CAO Ainsworth, and the entire team. I know this has been a long-term project to get this bylaw and its updates to a point where council's pleased with it. I'm really pleased to see the amendments that have been added in the process that staff have taken, even though it was multiple steps and about over a year process. I am pleased with where we have landed. And with 10.5, which is the request for addendum to Swoop Fiber public Wi-Fi, we have some friends here tonight from Swoop Fiber in the audience. Swoop has been an excellent advocate for accessible Wi-Fi within the Elmvale community. Obviously, also having recently expanded northward into a neighboring municipality as well. But we know that Swoop, as an Elmvale-based business located directly on William Street, has already partnered with the municipality with our Elmvale Community Arena, and they've done a fantastic job. Not only that, but here on the agenda this evening is also an opportunity to expand service into our community hall and through the parking lot as well to support events like the farmers market. And into our parks in the community, which is also a pretty unique opportunity. How many small communities do you know that have free Wi-Fi access in rural parks? We know that there's still a significant portion of our municipality, but the region as a whole that does not have access to internet at all, let alone high-speed, secure, accessible internet. So thank you, Swoop, for providing that opportunity. Thank you to our Parks and Rec and Facilities team, Director Culver and your team for working with Swoop to make this a reality as well. It's nice to see how this partnership that started just 2 years ago has really expanded now. As we know, Swoop is also a significant partner of the Elmvale Farmers Market and bringing that back for another year. So I thank them for their efforts.
Thank you. Comments on any of the remaining items? Not seeing any. All those in favor? And that has carried. We will now move back to 10.2, which is the draft fence and pool enclosure. I have that moved by Deputy Cabral and a seconder, Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I just don't know really about this particular one in the sense of, am I going to make a comment? Going over it a second time, I just noticed that it's rather lengthy and somewhat restrictive because there are areas where some residents don't have a backyard, they have a side yard. And according to this, they would be put in a position where they wouldn't be able to put up really a privacy fence if they wanted to put, they might be able to put a pool at the side of their house or put a patio at the side of their house, but they wouldn't be able to build a fence that was higher. And I was kind of wondering whether it's because we've had an inordinate number of complaints about fences or whether it's just a bylaw that, we want to put into place to maybe regulate fences as they come online. I also was looking at the commercial aspect and trying to wrap my head around some of the fences I've seen out there that are already in place. Some fairly secure locations. We don't know what they have inside, but it's not unusual to see, 10 or 12 foot chain link fences in commercial areas or industrial areas with barbed wire on the top. So there were some concerns there about what types of fences might be appropriate and what types of materials could be used in the fence. So the way the motion is worded, this would come into effect January 1st, but there doesn't really appear to be any opportunity for fine tuning, let's say, on those particular items because it's a fairly complex bylaw. I also had a question with respect to the fence viewers because their particular role under the Fence Line Act is specific to where the boundary lines are and where the fence will be placed. So if we don't do that anymore and we just go with a fence bylaw, are we still going to be able to adjudicate that? So that's my concerns, and maybe they're just comments, but unless we maybe send this back to staff for one more fine tune and have a look at some of those concerns and then bring it back to council at another date rather than enact it today for something that's going to take effect January 1st, 2027. So that's my thoughts on it, and I'd love to hear any other members of council that might have thoughts about it as well. But those are my concerns on those two particular pieces, and I really didn't have an opportunity to go through this really well on Monday, but I did go through it again today.
I'm thinking before I do go to members of public, CO Ainsworth does have comment.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I'm able to respond to a majority of the questions. In relation to the side yards, there is a provision within the bylaw that provides residents to request a variance. Those would be looked at on a case-by-case basis. As long as they wouldn't affect site triangles, that's the main concern about side yard fencing. Mostly would be for a corner lot. So there are variance provisions within the bylaw where residents could come forward and request a variance to the bylaw. The residential fence height of 6 feet is consistent with municipalities across Ontario, with commercial zones and industrial zones having additional allowances for height and protection of their property, depending on what type of establishment is there. This has come forward due to the number of complaints. From a bylaw enforcement perspective, we do receive a lot of inquiries, a lot of complaints from neighbors about materials used for fencing, heights of fences in residential areas specifically where it doesn't follow the trend or the aesthetic of the rest of the neighborhood. This bylaw's been in the works for quite some time. We've looked at quite a few other municipalities to ensure that it's quite consistent with neighboring municipalities, specifically within Simcoe County. The comment about the fence viewers, right now the township does follow the Line Fences Act, which is legislation, quite old legislation that was originally put into place to deal with farming properties, more rural areas, but it also applies to settlement areas, more built up residential areas. Should this bylaw be approved and passed by council, it would no longer be necessary to have fence viewers, as the bylaw would have provisions stating that if it is a boundary fence, it is to be dealt with amongst property owners on a 50-50 cost recovery basis. That's what the fence viewers do adjudicate right now, is the cost apportionment as well as the materials to build the fence, which would be regulated within the bylaw. The line fences piece is a civil matter. The township doesn't determine boundaries between properties. Even the fence viewers cannot determine or deal with concerns of where the line is. That has to be something that is agreed on between both property owners to say, yes, this is the line, and then the fence viewers do have some authority over it. But this bylaw would recommend opting out of the Line Fences Act, which again is quite common amongst municipalities, because it is strictly a civil matter.
Follow
on?
Thank you, and I do appreciate that, Clerk C.O. Ainsworth. I don't know what your position is when you're up here. I apologize. And it does strike me as being okay, but when it's a civil matter between two individuals and they're the ones that aren't able to make it, that's where the fence viewer kind of helps them determine that. So that was the one piece there that I was concerned about. With respect to the variance piece, my concern with that is that it actually places those particular individuals in a position where now they're asking for permission, and they're also going to incur costs to do that. So, I don't know whether or not the bylaw would be able to have some exception or some specification that permitted that for them to do that based on the geographic shape of their property and where that fence would be. So, it makes sense that there is the opportunity for a variance, but those folks then have to pay for it, and they may not get it. Even though they might have, all the justification for asking for that additional privacy. So, as I said, it's not necessarily my concerns, but I guess my question back to you is, would it be a problem or an issue if this was to go back to staff one more time and then come back to council, even if it was in September? And maybe take some of those concerns into mind. I mean, of course, it's up to council if they don't choose, or if they choose not to send it back to staff, because it's not going to come into effect till January 1st of 2027. So my take on it is I'd like to see it be a little bit more refined before it comes back back to council. And I do apologize that I did not get an opportunity to share my thoughts earlier, but as I said, I just got a chance to really have a good look at it again today. So that would be what I would be asking for, if it's possible. If it's not, that's fine too.
CAO?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Absolutely, staff can bring this back forward in September. We can provide notice to council to provide comments, just like we did to the special events bylaw. The piece about the variance, staff have put in an application fee of $240. That's just based on the costs that the remuneration that the Property Standards Committee receives. That is up to council. Should council wish to not have a fee for a variance application, that is completely at the purview of council. What council is limited to is cost recovery. Council can't arbitrarily put a number to it. It has to be up to cost recovery, but council may choose to have no fee for that. So that can be also a comment that we seek when we do a circulation. So I would recommend should council wish to, somebody could propose an amendment that the bylaw be referred to the September meeting with a circulation for comments from council. That could be an amendment that would be tabled.
And I'm assuming that the amendment is going to happen. I did have Councillor Garwood and Councillor Moore with their hands up. If there was comments tonight, or if you would support the amendment, those comments can come completely. Councillor Garwood and then Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and I'm happy to move or second that piece of direction. Similar to the Deputy Mayor's comments, my only comment that I was going to make tonight was regarding Section 16, which is also the fence variances piece. In Section 16, it does say where a proposed or existing fence does not comply with the bylaw, the owner may apply for a variance from one or more applicable provisions. It continues on with additional information, and it speaks to the Property Standards Committee's decision being final. My only concern there is A, does that mean if the fence is not in compliance today, then therefore they have to then apply for a variance, and then now we're asking residents to put a $240 fee associated with that application? Understanding, I can tell you, I can name 15 fences in my neighborhood alone that are definitely not within that 6 feet expectation through the bylaw. Understanding there's also unique scenarios in which, whether it be elevation related, why a fence might be higher, privacy concerns, etc. So I'm not saying they're major concerns, but just structural in nature and maybe a tweaking of some language. So I would be pleased to see it kicked back to staff with the opportunity to do something similar as noted.
Councillor Moore.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. I concur. I'm curious to know, I have several residents that argue, and now their fences are 12 feet tall. So is there a grandfathering? Because if they become aware of this fence bylaw, that in and of itself is going to become a topic of something to fight over. So just curious, they wouldn't meet, I don't think, a traditional variance. So what do we do with those kinds of folks?
CAO?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. There is a grandfathering clause built into the bylaw, anticipating those types of concerns. We didn't want anybody who was outside of compliance to have to come to a variance. So there is a grandfathering clause. Anything built prior to the enactment of this bylaw would be exempt until major renovations, repair, construction of a new fence. That would trigger this bylaw.
Follow on?
Thank you. And if I'm building a new fence, do I need to let the township know that I am building a new fence? Do I have to apply for a sort of a compliance with the building department?
A permit, yes.
Permit. That's what I was thinking of.
Yes. CAO?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Only in the event of a pool enclosure. If it's just a regular fence not enclosing a pool, there would be no permit required. It would just be the provisions of the bylaw would need to be adhered to. Or
additionally,
yes, there are clauses within subdivision agreements that aren't at the township's purview, but that also comes into play.
So I do have this moved and seconded. There is a draft amendment here. I did hear support, so I'll have the original motion is moved by Deputy Cabral, seconded by Councillor Garwood. I'll do it in reverse. Councillor Garwood and Deputy Cabral moving the amendment. So the amendment is that the motion before council is to amend as follows: replace July 8th, 2027 with September 2nd, 2026. Sorry. And that staff seek comments from council regarding the draft bylaw prior to the reporting back. All in favor of the amendment? That has carried, and we are now back to the main motion as amended. All those in favor? And that has carried. Moving on to item 10.4, the Grenfell Community Park, moved by Councillor Moore, and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Alexander, and I will turn to Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Just a small amendment, if I may add that this renovation include painting pickleball court lines on the Grenfell Pavilion floor. I have spoken with Director Culver, who's advised me that it won't be difficult under renovation at the time. There is a cost, but there is the $44,000, I believe, still remaining in that fund that could be used. And I think you mentioned less than $5,000 to paint 4 courts on the pavilion floor.
And sorry, just for the funding allocation, the name of.
So the funding comes from the mixed subdivision contribution out of the land acquisition reserve. Thank you.
So again, we have this moved and seconded. I would just ask for the amendment, Councillor Fisher and Councillor Moore, and that to include that 4 pickleball court lines be painted on the rink floor as part of the project with funding allocated from the mixed subdivision reserve. Any questions on the amendment? All those in favor? That has carried, and we are back to the main motion as amended. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? And that has carried. We are now moving on to item 10.10, which is the Development Charges Reduction Program, moved by Councillor Fisher, and a seconder for this. Please get it on the floor. Councillor Moore. Back to Councillor Fisher.
Thank you. Just a few comments. I absolutely realize that staff is going to go forward and investigate this further. So I appreciate the comments from earlier on tonight from Director Bedard, and also questions from the public as well. This is it's very important to me, and I think for my constituents in Ward 5, Craig Road is, you've heard me talk about it multiple times before, is vital. It has to grow along with the subdivision, and funding for this project has always been a topic anyway. I also believe that this spurs growth, and we do get the upfront money to start the project, not relying on debt financing potentially should everything work out. So I look forward to this coming back to council, and I really do thank staff for getting this on the agenda very quickly. So. In terms of voting on it?
No, sorry, it was pulled for redirection.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I just wanted to make a comment on it. Sorry.
Comment, Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Director Bedard, again, thank you, Director Bedard, for answering my various questions about this matter earlier on. I do think that this is absolutely the right path for us to at least submit this application again to A, seek whether or not this is financially viable for the municipality, but B, we've seen municipalities voluntarily go down this path across the province in recent years, obviously, with the significant pressure from the provincial government for through the provincial priority to build more homes faster. You're seeing that this is happening, and you know what? There could be a reality where this isn't an optional path moving forward. So I think it's best that we're getting ahead of that, and we're able to then make the determination down the road once we receive that information. Just if I can, Mayor Coughlin, through you to Director Bedard, I know you did speak to this matter a bit earlier when there was a question during question period, but just to maybe subside some concerns or questions that I know I have received and heard throughout the community regarding when somebody sees a 30% reduction in development charges. Obviously, there's a lot of details here in this lengthy report. Could you just summarize at a very high level, in addition to what you've already outlined, just so the residents are fully aware as to what we're voting on today?
Director Bedard?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Through you to Councillor Garwood. What staff are proposing is the council endorse in principle a 30% reduction to township-wide development charges. Aligning with the significant contribution that development charges provide to Craig Road, this reduction is very similar to that funding contribution. So it would be, in essence, changing a bit of how Craig Road is funded, reducing DCs, but asking the province for assistance through this program as well. The one component that we're not sure of at the time is how much money the province may provide on for a successful application. Right now, the province has indicated they'll fund up to 10% foregone development charge revenue. The remaining 10% would have to be made up by the township through either debt financing, use of reserves, some other funding source at the time. Those are the uncertainties that we're faced with right now. So depending on the province's response to our application, that would determine the amount of funding we get. We could bring that financial analysis back to council and then provide our opinion on whether this is a financial benefit to the township or a bit of a financial loss. But right now we support moving the application forward and we look forward to hearing a response back.
Councillor Fisher?
And thank you, Director Bedard, for that synopsis of it. I think there's two components to this. And again, it's a bit speculative because we don't know everything as of yet. But two things, and I agree with Councillor Garwood, you hear a 30% reduction in DCs and you just see it as an automatic loss. One, a reduction in DCs is a potential to spur growth, right, which is vitally needed. The other factor is getting the money up front from the province, potentially. I mean, should it work out in our favor? Craig Road was largely supposed to be debt financed up front and then paid for in ensuing DCs, right? I think if we can take money from the provincial government, not debt finance it, I see potentially that 10% reduction as maybe what we would have spent in servicing costs anyway for the loans, right? It might not be exact, but certainly getting the project started is vital and actually spurring growth. So potentially, should it work out, and it is speculative, but worth looking into, I see this as being a win-win for both development and growth, but also getting major projects funded up front. So I'm really excited about it.
Not seeing anything further. All those in favor? And that has carried. We are now moving on to our information reports. May I have a mover and seconder for these, please? Councillor Alexander and Councillor Garwood. That the report items listed herein be received as information. One is our building services monthly update, May 2026. Bylaw services monthly update, May 2026. The update at our Weedat Dadawin Lookout Gate. Bill 9, Municipal Accountability Act. 5 is our zoning bylaw housekeeping amendments of 2026. 6 is the water meter program and high usage alerts. 7 is the billing frequency and cost and paperless savings. 8 is the water leak adjustment policy and municipal benchmarking. 9 is the credit card report for April of 2026. And 10 is the May 2026 check register. I do have number 7 and 8 pulled for redirection. Councillor, are there any other items to be pulled for redirection? Not seeing any at this time. We would have any comments on the remaining items. Not seeing any. All those in favor? That has carried. We will now move to item number 7. And I don't know, Councillor Garwood and a seconder, Councillor Alexander, please.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. First, I want to make a comment on all three of those reports, item 6, item 7, and item 8, understanding that they came from one singular motion. So I did want to say thank you to the Finance Department, there was a lot of work and a lot of research in those reports, and it's not easy information to gather and also communicate. So I appreciate that. I think they've answered a lot of questions that I know I had. Specifically for item number 7 and 8, Councillor Alexander and I are proposing redirection on both. I will start with number 7. So it says that the motion now before council be amended as follows. So I'm adding that staff be directed to report back for council's consideration on a detailed cost estimate for transitioning to a bi-monthly and monthly utility billing cycle. So this does not mean that we are transitioning to that path. This is again moving to the next step of that project. In conversation with the finance team, it was advised that that this type of information and council consideration would be coming forth regardless whether it came from council direction or from staff bringing it forward for consideration. This might just speeding up the process. Again, I'm not putting a timeline on this, understanding that we are moving into a limited council meeting period, so it might not even be something that is decided amongst by this council. But that is what that we are proposing, and I'll pass it to Councillor Alexander if she has anything to add.
Councillor Alexander?
I will be brief here. I think understanding that, there is a potential cost with more frequent billing. I do believe it's worth exploring because in the end, it could save us money or it will allow residents the ability to have quicker visibility if they do have a water leakage problem and if they need to fix it. So I do think it's definitely worth exploring. So I'm happy to support this.
So we do have an amendment on the floor and that staff be directed to report back for council's consideration of a detailed cost estimate for transitioning to a bi-monthly or monthly utility billing cycle. Any comments or questions on the amendment? Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And when I read the report, it seemed to me that if we went to bi-monthly, it basically doubled the cost. So I just want to know, are we talking about just because you have to do the meter readings to do the billing? So, I mean, it's fine to go ahead and get the estimate, but I think if I started off with the baseline, I could figure it out because you're going to do everything that many more times.
And I think that's where the detailed cost estimate, I think that it captures that part of it as well. Councillor Garwood?
Thank you, Mayor Colgan. And just further, for transitioning. So I think that's the other piece to that, right? Which is clarifying, well, it's not only a cost estimate that we're seeking, it's also the transitional process, plan, policy, staffing, et cetera. Yes, that all equates to costing. But is this something that in realistic efforts, we did not ask for initially in the original direction? Is this going to take 6 months or is it going to take 6 years to transition to? And what does that look like? So those are also the information that I would like to see come forth. And again, that is stemmed from conversations with the finance department. Understanding, again, we are not the first municipality to consider this this potential endeavor. We're also hoping that while yes, the report does speak to it being more costly to run the utility billing cycle more frequently throughout the year, as Councillor Alexander noted, we could also be reducing our costs from a staff inquiry perspective. Understanding identified in the report. Currently, when those utility bills come out, quarterly, residents are often flooding the municipality with inquiries and questions, not only the municipality, but also with members of council as well. So this could also reduce staff time and investment as well, and also provide a better customer service experience for our residents.
Deputy Cabral?
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And not to muddy the waters, but can staff provide us with some kind of a number as to the number of people that are reaching out to the township because, their bill's way over the top? I think there's an opportunity to have a balance here. If it's a large number of people, it almost makes sense. But if it's not a huge number of people, transitioning to another model, maybe a leak forgiveness thing might be better. I also did suggest earlier on, just through a conversation with CAO Ainsworth, and it came up before, an opportunity for us to use our app so that people could provide their own meter readings in. And at least that way, we could commit them. If you want to have the leakage forgiveness package, you have to commit to providing, you know what I mean, to try and reduce the amount of money that we're going to spend to try and offset people who have leaks. And that's why I think it's important for us to know, like, how many people out there are actually having an issue with a leak. And if it's a large number, then we're going to have to do something. But if it's a small number, to go to a double or quadruple the expense in order to satisfy a small number of people, I think we'd be better off just to give them back the money, to be honest with you. So is that something that we could also look at having done? Are you okay with that, Matt? Thank you.
Thank you. And so CAO Ainsworth does have it highlighted here to include, do you want to say customer concerns or customer, I don't want to say complaints. Nobody likes to call it complaints. Yeah. Customer inquiry data, and has also included an estimate for the transition implementation timeline to be included as well. Anything further on the amendment? Not seeing any. All those in favor? That has carried. And we are now back to the main motion as amended. Anything further on this? All those in favor? And that has carried. We're now moving on to item 8, the water leak adjustment policy and municipal benchmarking. Moved by Councillor Garwood, seconded by Councillor Alexander, and back to Councillor Alexander, or sorry, Councillor Garwood.
Thank you so much, Mayor Coughlin. And again, speaking to this, this was something that I advocated for heavily earlier on when the direction was brought forward in comparison to other municipalities, and understanding that the municipal benchmarking was data was significantly included in that report. So thank you. What staff have come back with, in my perspective, is excellent. I think it's a fair balance to some of the comments and concerns that were shared around the table initially. Obviously, some municipalities have a drastic policy, some have a very basic one. Obviously, here in the Township of Springwater, we have none at all. Currently, right now, is just a reminder, when a resident calls in to inquire about usage concerns or potentially a significant leak after that quarterly cycle bill comes out, beyond speaking with staff to review that data, there is no further direction that staff can provide. They do not have the authority to do so. Obviously, we as individual members of council also do not have the authority to make those individual amendments, nor is that something that I know in significant conversations that Councillor Alexander and I have had is our intention of this. We do not want to turn this council table into us facilitating 30 inquiries on a leak forgiveness policy. So some of the highlights from the draft policy that have been provided and presented, I will just speak to a couple of them just to clarify a few things. One is that the leak must be unintentional and repairable. 2, the water usage must exceed normal or historical levels, so often defined as 200% above the typical consumption, so a significant increase in a traditional bill. A maximum dollar limit applies. So in the report, staff spoke to $1,000 to $1,500. So again, we're not speaking whether you have a $2,000 water bill one time or you have a $20,000 water bill, the maximum dollar amount that could be forgiven would be consistent across the board. Obviously, there's a limit on how many times a customer can apply for the forgiveness. Again, the example was 3 to 5 years, once in a 3 to 5 year period. Proof of repair is required. I could continue to go down, but that would really empower staff through the Director of Finance and the Manager of Taxation and Revenue to be able to provide residents with an avenue. It does not mean automatically that the forgiveness would be warranted or approved, but it would provide an avenue for those conversations to start. Currently, right now, the motion is just to receive, as this is an information report. So Councillor Alexander and I, in conversation, would like to add an amendment that council adopts the water leak adjustment policy attached to the report as Appendix A, amended to be applicable to residential, commercial, and industrial properties, and further that this policy be enacted retroactively to January 1st, 2026. Therefore, meaning similar to other financial forgiveness direction that this council has provided in recent months, where it does not mean everyone automatically gets something retroactively. It just means that staff can consider, as long as it falls within the permitted policy, a forgiveness, one-time forgiveness up to $1,500 from January 1st, 2026, moving forward. Again, happy to answer any questions and happy to pass it to Councillor Alexander.
It has been read. Councillor Alexander, you have additional comments? Councillor Alexander.
I'll just be brief. I would like to thank staff for coming back with this. I did have some concerns about this when this was first brought forward, and I'm quite satisfied with the report that came back from staff regarding the measures that are put in place. So yeah, again, thank you very much, staff, and happy to support, as Councillor Garwood and I have worked on this for a while.
Yep.
So thank you for indulging me as well, Councillor.
Yeah.
Deputy Cabral.
Just one question through the mayor. When these forgiveness amounts go out, where's that money coming from? That's what I need to know. That's going to come from the water and wastewater. So that means that everybody who's on the system is picking up that tab, correct? Just want to be clear on that. It's not coming from any other pot. Okay, thank you.
So we do have an amendment on the floor, and the amendment again is that council adopt the water leak adjustment policy attached to this report as Appendix A, amended to be applicable to residential, commercial, and industrial properties, and that further this policy be enacted retroactively to January 1st, 2026. Anything further on that? All those in favor? That is carried. And the main motion as amended. Anything further? All those in favor? And that has carried. We are now moving on to our municipal updates. Councillor Fisher.
Just wanted to talk about the drainage tour that some members of council went on last Wednesday. Found it very informative, great weather for it, but very informative. Yeah, it was warm. We definitely got to see and hear about some of the issues that affect our agricultural community, and work with staff and look towards what can be done. Certainly don't have a solution to some of the flooding from it, but I certainly understand the problems that are faced by certain individuals. So anyway, it was a great tour. And the other portion here is more of a question actually posed to staff. I have a constituent on Windat who was talking to me about their, you may be familiar with it, the post boxes are covered by a gazebo that's sort of falling apart. I'm just wondering if there's something we can do about that.
That's the motion. Thank you. It has been, CAO has said we will look into it. Any further municipal updates? Councillor Alexander.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. So Flood Ready Severn Sound with support from Intact's Municipal Climate Resiliency Grants Program to help municipalities build resilience against flooding and address flooding risks due to extreme weather events and changing climate in our region. Very topical right now. There will be a public open house next Tuesday, June 23rd from 6 to 8 at the Elmville Community Hall. So anybody with concerns, I encourage you to come out. And then secondly, a reminder, July 1st, Canada Day fireworks will be occurring in Phelpston as they always do every year at dusk, and any donations of fireworks are always appreciated. Hope to see people out.
Councillor Garwood.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. And before you go to fireworks in Phelpston, you can head on over to Heritage Park in Elmville from 1 to 4 once again this year. There'll be live music. The Elmville and District Lions Club will be there providing free food and free lunch. There'll be kids activities. There will be music for 3 hours and a couple other surprise items to be announced soon. So it's going to be a great free day for everyone in Springwater to come out. Please do so. We're hoping for some great weather. If by chance knock on wood, it rains, then the Anvil Community Hall is our backup option as well. Just a few other items I wanted to mention. Of course, it's that time of year again that the splash pad has been reopened in Elmville. It is always a very exciting topic of conversation and one that everyone, I know especially my children, look forward to every year. So wanted to thank the Parks and Recreation team as well for their work on that. The splash pad, which is located at Homer Barrett Park, is open from 10 to 7 daily, 7 days a week. And the last item that I did want to mention is I wanted to congratulate the Elmville Curling Club. This past weekend, they had a spring into summer event, their first one yet, cornhole, 90 plus cars car show, which I had fun picking best car and best truck. I don't know if I did a good job or not, but it was fun doing it. And live music from the high school and local entertainment. It was a great fundraising day for the curling club, and one that I know that they can build off in years coming. So congratulations to them.
Not seeing anything further, I just came to mind, but I know when people attend events that are free, they often want to give back, whether it's a donation to the food bank, and maybe there's an opportunity for the Elmville Recreation Association to collect fireworks for the Phelpston. Just thought.
Noted.
Not seeing any further updates. Oh, sorry, Councillor Moore.
That's okay. I'll just put a plug in for Berry Hill Farms, who are having their Strawberry Festival starting next weekend, the 28th and the 29th. It'll be a big event, lots to do for kids. There's vendors, there's, of course, the silo has great food, so there'll be entertainment as well. They're probably having a pancake breakfast. I'm throwing that out there because traditionally that's what they do. So I hope everybody puts some time aside to come pick some strawberries.
Not seeing anything further, we will now move on to our notices of motion, first by Councillor Garwood, and looking for a seconder, and this is on the parking at Train Avenue East. Councillor Alexander. Councillor Garwood?
Whereas concerns have been identified regarding parking and traffic safety on Train Avenue East, now therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to prepare an amending bylaw to amend the traffic and parking bylaw 2025-018 as amended as follows. 1, Schedule A, prohibited parking be amended to prohibit parking at any time on the south side of Train Avenue East from Yonge Street South to Simcoe Street, and further that the amending bylaw be presented to council for consideration at a future meeting. Just quickly on this one, this has been an area of safety concern for many years. For those of you that aren't aware, there is no municipally owned ball diamond in the settlement area of Elmville. Therefore, we rely upon school and agricultural society diamonds. The 2 diamonds at Huronia Centennial Elementary School, which abuts Train Avenue East, gets utilized almost every night of the week, which is great. But at the same time, it has created significant congestion. Just recently, there was a safety matter where an ambulance was trying to get down Train Avenue East and was unable to make it down the road due to vehicles parked on both sides of the road. Today, actually, I drove down that road as I do often and witnessed the exact same scenario where buses could not get down, or if they could, it was almost hitting vehicles on either side. So this would again still allow for parking on the side of the road that is closest to the diamonds with the sidewalks, and therefore prohibiting on the other side. I have been in conversation with Elmville Minor Ball. They are fully supportive, and we're the ones that actually brought this forward. So they will work with their parents and leagues to ensure that this is followed, and I'm hopeful support around the table.
Councillor Alexander?
Just a quick comment. I was happy to see this come forward. My children played baseball there when they were quite a few years ago, but it was a bit of a disaster zone at that point, and it has been for many years. So it's timely.
There was a baseball tournament or something happening at the school today, and it was packed everywhere. So track and field. Oh, I thought that was at the Diamonds. So yes. So thank you for bringing this forward. Council, anything further? All those in favor? And that is carried. Councillor Garwood, seconder on the hydro seeding. Counselor Moore, and I will turn to Counselor Garwood.
Whereas ditching has recently been conducted in the northeast quadrant of Elmvale, and whereas the township's current service standard is to apply grass seed to such projects in order to reinstate grass in the disturbed locations and urbanized areas, and whereas the residents have expressed concern regarding the ability for grass to grow in the areas due to soil conditions. Be it therefore resolved that council hereby direct that hydroseeding take place in the affected areas as an alternative solution to grass seed. So just further to this request, I'll give a bit of background. First, I do want to thank staff, Public Works for their effort in supporting residents, especially on Centennial and Shaw and Glenview, through the various drainage challenges that have occurred over the past, I'm going to say decades, because it's been a while. These roads have not had significant reconstruction in many years, similar to some of the other drainage concerns that we've spoken about in Midhurst in recent months. Traditional ditches still align many of these roads. Residents in this area, I'm going to go on a limb and say 30 plus, have experienced devastating floods and basements over these multiple decades, many now unable to even get flood insurance in their homes. These residents have been very patient, and staff have done an excellent job at working with these residents over the past many years to try to come to some sort of a resolution. Everything from culvert clearing to assessing water flow patterns to clearing significant brush to assist in the water flow has been completed. And this year, a significant project which was ditching all of these ditches on Shaw and Centennial primarily, was completed to again not only remove a lot of the overgrown vegetation that was there, but also re-level out some of the grading to allow that water to continue to flow in through and underneath Homer Barrett Park and out into the Wye River. With that in mind, many of us that are familiar with the soil conditions in the Elmvale community, you might as well sprinkle grass seed on concrete. It is challenging to say the least. The residents in this area have been very, very concerned, and in my perspective, rightfully so. They've been dealing with these drainage concerns and again have been very patient in doing so, are very pleased with the direction that staff have taken, but at the same time understand the significant maintenance required, especially now that ditching has been done. Those ditches have been fully scalped back, and it's their responsibility to maintain and manage. Understanding that the traditional path forward from a staff perspective is to grass seed, understanding that from those conversations, a deviation in our traditional processes was required or recommended by the residents and myself in this situation, hence the direction forward. Also, due to the time of year that we're currently at as well, moving into the season where it is challenging to also grow matters such as grass, the hydroseeding from the research that has been completed not only pleases the residents in this specific area, but also has the most success for growth. So I'm hopeful to see council support. I know there has been questions in regards to the per square meter costing associated. Currently, grass seed is at a 23-cent cost per square meter, where the hydroseeding is about $1.60 per square meter. And I understand staff have estimates around costing that they can speak to as well to complete the project. But I'm hopeful that we can support the residents in their request. I'm going to be honest, this is one of the items I've heard from folks the most on over this term, and rightfully so. So I'm hopeful that we can be supportive of our Shaw and Centennial Street residents.
I'll look to members of council for any questions on this. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and through you. And, you know, when I saw this on here, the only thought that came to my mind is that basically it was strictly a direction. you will hydro seed. And I did ask the question about, like, what are the costs? What have we done in the past? Hydro seeding does work. The ministry uses it particularly, in places that they can't get to regularly. They fire it off at the side of the bridges and whatnot. I could support this if it was something along the lines of providing staff the opportunity to be selective on when it's being used. The way I see it here, it's kind of telling them that they need to use it. If we look at 1,000 square meters, the difference is, $230 versus $1,600. And that's a fair chunk of coin. They've been using seeding in the past, so I'd like to support it. But to be quite honest with you, the way it's phrased, Councillor Garwood, I wouldn't be able to, unless, of course, it was to provide staff the opportunity, the option to use it where they felt it was appropriate. And this might very well be the case where it might be appropriate. But the cost is significant. It's 6 times what we're currently paying to, basically do the same job. And, hydro seeding gets washed away like regular seeds do too. So that would be my only concern. I don't know whether or not you'd be open to a friendly amendment to that effect. I'd be certainly able to support it at that point, but I wouldn't want to say hydro seeding because there'd be areas that staff, they might have a couple of thousand, even the grass that we use on our pitches and on our soccer fields, we're planting that by seed and it comes up pretty nice and they've been doing it for a long time. So that would be my ask for a friendly amendment, would be to let staff use it at their discretion in the appropriate circumstances that warrant the additional expense.
I'll turn to Councillor Garwood, and then I do have Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin, and thank you to the Deputy Mayor for the comments. I'm absolutely amendable to making adjustments to ensure that this proceeds. My concern is if we adjust the language as requested, Deputy Mayor Cabral, to me, that's the existing direction staff already have. Staff can choose to use hydro seeding if and when seed does not take place. Those are the conversations that I've had with the Public Works Department regarding the fact that yes, we could provide the opportunity to assess and attempt the seed first, and then if it does not take, then go to the hydro seed. But that then also increases the overall cost, that pushes the project further along, and we could also use lose our best window for germination. So while I'm open to an amendment, I think that amendment is directed, in my perspective at least, and I'll let staff clarify. Staff already have that authority, from what I understand.
Follow-on?
Thank you, and I appreciate that through you, Mayor Coughlin. I appreciate that, Councillor Garwood. But the way your motion is worded, you're directing staff in this particular case to do that. And I'm okay with that. All I'm saying is that staff, according to your motion, do not have that opportunity. Your motion basically says that they will, and like I say, I'm okay with that. I just would prefer an amendment there that says that if staff are going to be doing any hydro seeding, that they should do hydro seeding under the appropriate circumstances. This may very well be one, but the additional cost is substantial. So I don't feel comfortable supporting it specifically the way it's worded. So I hope you appreciate that.
Councillor Garwood, and then I do have.
Sorry, Councillor Fisher. And thank you to the Deputy Mayor for the question. While I respect the thought process, from my conversations with staff, staff do have the authority currently, again, from an operational perspective, but the concern was precedent. And while staff could take the request of a member and could implement that, then in theory, the same expectation could be had by all of us. So that is why I'm here at the table today. I know there's been conversations that I've had with other members as well leading up to today around the hope to be able to generalize this a bit more and not make it specific to one location. So I'm happy to add in language that encourages staff and reaffirms the authority for staff to be able to utilize hydro seeding. But respectfully, in this case, I am still going to request that the direction be provided to hydro seed to proceed first.
Counselor Fisher?
I'm just, if it's up to staff right now to make the determination of whether to use hydro seed or regular seed, maybe I'm missing something here, but can't we just leave it up to them and they would use their better judgment? I mean, surely they've been doing it long enough that if they feel it warrants hydro seeding in the beginning, then hydro seed. And if it doesn't, then use regular seed. I think if the cost is that much more, we're sort of directing staff out of the gate to do the more expensive of the two. I'm pretty sure they can judge from the get-go whether or not they need to hydro seed or not, I would think.
And if maybe I can help move the conversation along here. The reason that there is a notice of motion is because we understand that we have a level of service across the township. And currently that level of service, it was the recommendation to take the seed route first. The residents are concerned about that, understanding they know the area. As we are aware, an individual member of council cannot provide direction to staff. So this was Councillor Garwood at the advice of staff to bring this forward to ask for council's support in this situation. Follow on?
Sorry, just for my own clarification. So could we not then, in this particular instance, in this particular area where we feel that it's warranted, just hydro seed there, but under regular circumstances, leave it up to staff's judgment? In this particular instance, I that's it. Okay. I mean, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we got heads nodding here. So if there is something that you would like to, I can see Director Harvey has his.
Through you, Mayor Coughlin, that's exactly it. The mayor summed it up exactly. I mean, this is something where we have a level of service throughout the township to be consistent. And so that's why it was brought forward in this manner, to seek direction to go outside that box. Staff are very confident that they can ascertain the best methodology there, and we would reach out to experts in the field if need be to give us guidance. I'm not a turf expert, but having said that, we would certainly like the direction that council's at now.
So I think we get the point. We got this. All right. So we have this moved and seconded. Not seeing anything further. All those in favor? And that has carried. We'll now move on to item 13.3. I have this moved by Deputy Cabral and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Alexander. Sorry, I feel like I keep going. Yes, Councillor Alexander, but I'll look the other way as well. Deputy Cabral.
Thank you, Mayor Coughlin. Basically, I might as well read this out and then I'd like to speak to it afterwards. Basically, this is support for recommendation number 1 of the Renfrew County Inquest regarding intimate partner violence. The recommendation being, whereas the 2022 Renfrew County Inquest into the deaths of Carol Colton, Anastasia Kruziak, and Natalie, well, it's spelled wrong here, so I apologize. Warmerdam issued 86 recommendations intended to reduce and prevent intimate partner violence in Ontario. And whereas recommendation number 1 of the Renfrew County Inquest calls upon the province of Ontario to formally declare intimate partner violence an epidemic, and whereas the Ontario Provincial Police reported an 18% increase in intimate partner violence victims in 2024, and Simcoe County Violence Against Women agencies received 12,870 crisis calls in 2025. And whereas the County of Simcoe has adopted a resolution declaring intimate partner violence an epidemic and requesting that the province of Ontario do the same, now therefore be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Springwater, number 1, support recommendation 1 of the Renfrew County Inquest calling upon the province of Ontario to formally declare intimate partner violence an epidemic, and 2, express its support for victims and survivors of intimate partner violence and for the organizations that provide prevention, intervention, shelter, counseling, and support services. And 3, direct that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Premier of Ontario, the local member of Provincial Parliament, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, AMO, and the County of Simcoe, and to all municipalities within Simcoe County. So that's the motion, and I do have something I wanted to read to kind of bring us all up to speed on.
Deputy Cabral?
Or even at the top. Try and keep it brief here. The motion is really about adding Springwater's voice to the recommendation that has already been made by the Renfrew County Inquest, supported by the County of Simcoe and endorsed by many municipalities across Ontario. It's important. It's also important to say what this motion is not about. It doesn't create new programs. It doesn't commit the township to new spending, and it doesn't suggest that the work being done today isn't enough. In fact, I'd like to recognize the incredible work already being done by our shelters, counselors, victim services, police, healthcare workers, and so many community organizations that help people experiencing intimate partner violence. The reason I'm bringing the motion forward is because the numbers tell us that this continues to be a serious issue. The OPP reported an 18% increase in intimate partner violence to victims in 2024, and here in Simcoe County, agencies received nearly 13,000 crisis calls last year alone. Those aren't just statistics. Each one of those calls represents someone who needed help. At one point, that really stood out to me in the background information is that intimate partner violence is often described as a hidden crime because it happens behind closed doors. Declaring it an epidemic doesn't solve the problem overnight, but it does acknowledge the scale of the issue. It helps bring it into the open, raises awareness, and strengthens the call for continued action and support. The motion's simply about asking us to support the first recommendation that came out of the Renfrew County Inquest, to support victims and survivors, and to support the organizations that do this difficult work every single day. I hope we, like Simcoe County and so many other municipalities, can send a united message today that Springwater stands with those victims and supports continued action to address intimate partner violence, and I'd appreciate council's support. I'd also like to share with council in my previous career, this wasn't something that was unknown in the policing circle. This was something that officers dealt with on a regular basis, unfortunately. And many officers could tell you many, many stories about people that they tried to help that there wasn't room at the shelter for them. So I just want to hope everybody will support this, and thank you very much.
Thank you for bringing this forward to our chamber. It was a very moving presentation at the county. Another portion of another side to this is that when data, it's easier to make decisions on data and funding decisions on data. And because intimate partner violence is not a separate line item on the calls for service, the numbers that we're hearing are probably low in comparison. So I think that it's very important that we have our voice be echoed in this, and thank you for bringing it to our chamber. Anything further on that? All those in favor? And that has carried. Councillor, are there any additional notices of motion? Any items for future consideration? May I have a mover and seconder for the bylaws, please? I have Councillor Moore and Councillor Fisher that the bylaws listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. 2026-049, amend council remuneration expenses policy. Any questions on this bylaw? All those in favor? That has carried. A mover and seconder for the confirmation bylaw, please. Councillor Garwood, Deputy Cabral, that bylaw 2026-050 to confirm and adopt the proceedings of council at the regular meeting held on June 17, 2026, listed herein be signed and sealed by the mayor and clerk. Comments? All those in favor? And I'm talking really fast, so we don't have to have a motion to extend. That the regular meeting of the Township of Springwater does now adjourn at 9:54 p.m. A mover and seconder. I have everybody, Councillor Garwood, Deputy Cabral, to meet again July 8th, 2026 at 6:30 p.m. All those in favor? And that has carried. Thank you.